Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Snarp Fangle.
Hey, stop right there. This is my podcast, Butt Nugget.
What?
I'm the host now. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to episode 43 of the Snarp Fangle podcast. I'm your host, David Reed, the man who has a ring for all those single ladies, along with my co-host, someone who you may have heard of if you ever wandered in the lonely tech room at Mars Hill Church. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Metzger. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing okay, David. I'm scared. I'm not used to this.
And now, here we have a guest who last premiered on Snarp Fangle's highest viewed episode as of this writing. He's a guy who would gladly sneak around in the dark using his stealthy strategy. Ladies and gents, Nick Kringle. How you doing, Nick?
Fabulous. Thanks for having me back.
Speaking of someone who reminds us of Hannibal Smith, our other guest, here comes running in to round out the group, our facemen to the A-team of Snarp Fangle hosts. He looks like a skater, and just like Oliver Reed, he definitely took the prom queen home. Ladies and gents, Matthew Reed. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing all right, but I have one question. What's the Mars Hill Church?
It was a church that Mark Driscoll was a pastor of, and then there's a whole controversy around it.
It's very
I've
masculine.
been doing some
church.
research on it. That's why it's in.
Gotta watch the podcast.
No, it's
on
really
that.
cool.
You gotta
if
watch
you
the podcast.
dive into it.
Yeah, I'm almost done with
Yeah.
the first episode, but yeah, I just feel, you know what? I might have been there. You never know.
And dun, dun,
This was a long time ago. And anyway, well, can I continue, my good sir?
You may continue.
All right. Well, anyway, for comments, concerns, thoughts, and hate mail and also your time warping Nicolas Cage fan fiction, please send them to snarpfanglepod@gmail.com. Gentlemen, we are here to reconvene on the two-film saga of the Snarp Fangle conundrum, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what to call it, but
One of those things.
Well, it's not one of those things, and we're gonna do. I think it was actually, I don't remember whose idea it was. I think we're gonna go into it right now, but we're doing two films that I haven't seen. So, Nick, what are those two films?
Oh, we're doing Gladiator and The Rock.
Yeah, The
With
Rock.
Sean Connery.
With Sean Connery. Well, all right. Well, then let's hop right into it. So, Gladiator. Here we go. Directed by Ridley Scott. Produced by Laurie McDonald, who also produced Twister, Men in Black, and Zorro. Okay.
Zorro.
Written by David Frazzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. Starring Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, and Connie Nielsen. And Oliver friggin' Reed. Budget was about 103 mil. Box office, 465. Pretty dang good.
Nice little profit.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hand it off to the actual host of the show, David, and we're going to just dive into Gladiator. So, David, Gladiator, tell us your very first experience with this film, as well as what you think of it overall.
Gladiator. Let's see. You know, there's a movie that I've seen so many times, I can't actually recall where I saw it first. It seems like Gladiator's always been part of my life. You know, one of those things. It's just like, you know,
Like
it's
church.
yeah, you know, it's just like
Church of Gladiators.
Gladiators, yeah.
It's always been there for me, you know,
Oh, yeah.
like a, you know, a comfy something or other. I don't know where I was
like the
always there.
warm arms of Shamelo.
Comfy pew or something? Like
I don't. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah,
like holding a guitar. It's just always
There it
It's
is.
natural.
yeah.
natural.
It's like
Extension of the
like
body.
a Gibson in my stomach. 6 strings,
And 6 fingers.
6 fingers.
That's right.
Only way.
You gotta have a finger
Well, you
for
can't
each
play the
string,
12
right?
string.
That's how
You don't have
guitars
enough
work,
fingers.
right?
Mhm.
As David nods yes at me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Where
were you when you first saw this film, David?
You say
I have no idea.
Did you watch it in theaters?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I must have seen it at home somewhere. Like, maybe we rented it one night or something. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, Gladiator's been like, you know, it's always been one of those like movies. I'm like, yeah, Gladiator. but I never really gave it much more thought than that. So I don't have like specific memories associated with it. I'm like the worst person to start this off.
Oh man, well I had to start off with you since you're our real host.
Yeah.
Of the podcast.
I don't think
You have asserted your dominance, I think. Dave.
Yeah, not very convincingly. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop giggling while I was reading the script you wrote.
No, you wrote it. No, you know. Okay, well, let Nick. How about we go to you? You seemed. I think it was your idea in the first place. You know, to say you haven't seen Gladiator, which was your
a shock. It was a shock
to you. Yeah,
like we were talking about before. It's like I am the elder here, so I'm a little older than because in 2000 when it came out, I was still in high school, so I was like halfway through high school. But yeah, I don't remember like David was saying kind of a specific time when I saw it. I think it was just the house. I don't think I actually saw it in theaters. We typically didn't really go to the theaters back when I was a kid. Too expensive, you know. It was like, which I mean nowadays obviously it's even more expensive.
Popcorn's no longer $3. It's like $17.
Fair. I know it's as much as the tickets, if not more. But I think it was just my dad always had like a passion, anyways, for like the Roman Empire and all that stuff. I mean, because as we talk about, guys always have the Roman Empire, which is one of the reasons why we start with Gladiator. Yeah, I mean, you always have to start with the Roman Empire.
That's right. Start where it all started.
Exactly.
Civilization, as they say. Which
definitely
totally didn't start with Roman Empire.
In some ways, it was started being more structuralized, I think, the world. I mean, because definitely the roads that the empire created definitely benefited the rest of the world for times to come, many years
Probably
afterwards.
also the more, I guess, written down history.
Yeah, the loggings of all loggings, the written writings of a lot of different things.
And it's probably something you learn about in most grades of history.
It makes me imagine like what that would have been like if the Romans had the printing press.
Yeah.
Can you imagine with the roads, the transportation, all that? Dude, that would have been freaking. It sounds like one of Nicolas Cage fan fiction we could write together. But did you see this in theaters, Nick?
No, I don't believe so. I believe it was just again rental, old Blockbuster Video on the old VHS
or Hollywood Video.
Be kind and rewind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did we have a Hollywood Video? I don't remember if we had one here or not.
We had one in Chico.
Because there's one in Orland. We had one in town.
There's one in Paradise, I think. Right?
Yeah, everywhere had one. Yeah, there's at least one on almost every corner. It was like a Dollar General back in the day.
Yeah, it was like a CVS in California. Everybody's robbing it, you know? All right. Well, what's your general thoughts of this film? Why do you like it, and what's
I always enjoyed it. Kind of sets the warrior spirit and all that type of thing. A very manly movie. You get the blood, violence. The hero who gets basically the world left you for dead, and here you come back for your revenge, and you end up saving the whole world and getting your revenge. So it's like spoiler alert, but and so I think it's just that it's a very motivational thing, especially if you have any kind of inklings towards a military career or any of that type of thing. It just really appeals, especially I feel the young guys and stuff like that. So again, I was mid high school at the time, so it just makes you want to go out there and fight the world.
You were the target audience.
Exactly.
Well, Matt, let's head over to you here. What are your general thoughts of Gladiator, and when was the first place you watched this?
I can't tell you the first place I watched it.
God.
We'll start there.
It's the same place as David.
I was with David. I was probably 2 or 3, 4.
Sounds about right.
It's 2000.
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah, probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So no help in that department. But my thoughts of it, it definitely lingers from history, but I think it has the foundations of a good movie, good characters. You got your method actor Joaquin.
That's right. Yeah.
You got Russell Crowe before he's fat.
Before he was fat Crowe.
His prime. Yeah.
Before he was eating a lot of Crowe.
Exactly. A little less Crowe.
And pre-Noah.
Don't bring up Noah.
We'll get there.
I'm sorry, I have to interject.
No,
that
it's fine.
because
Go ahead.
I found out a clip from a movie on Twitter, and I found out it was from Noah. It's a whole scene about these giant rock giants fighting Noah.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Yep.
what the heck is this from?
Oh,
And they're like, I love Russell Crowe in this movie. And I was watching the clip and I'm like,
Huge.
what is this? And then I looked it up. And it's from Noah.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, the Nephilim, and they're supposed to be
Yep,
the Nephilim. I'm
Nephilim,
like,
yep.
I feel like the MCU adapted Noah.
No. It's not the Nephilim.
It's not?
It's the Watchers.
Yeah.
What?
this-
They combined a lot of Jewish mythology
Oh,
and Bible things.
okay.
Yeah. So the movie Noah is actually like
strays
it's actually
from-
like Jewish mythology, like fan fiction.
Yeah.
What?
It
Yeah.
takes a lot of stuff from the Book of Enoch.
Yes.
Oh, no.
don't
So in the
read.
Book of Enoch, you have the Watchers, which are supposed to be like these angelic beings. And for whatever reason, I think Nick mentioned something about like maybe possibly tying it in with the golem or whatever.
Yeah.
But they decided to make them rock creatures for whatever reason.
They definitely.
And the
remind me
golem
of
being
Nephilim.
another thing from Jewish mythology.
Yeah.
More medieval Jewish mythology, but
yeah.
Jewish mythology nonetheless.
Yeah, because that's one of those things I can't remember. It might have been because we were playing Minecraft or something. I was looking at where golems come from or whatever like that. And they're from Jewish mythology. Which is interesting because even with all them like messianic history and stuff I know, I hadn't realized kind of all of the Jewish mysticism and stuff like that because there's a whole nother sect and angle of that. I've always heard the guys bending the spoons and stuff like that, but with their minds. But I never follow up too much on their like fairy tales and all that type of thing. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff if you want to get into it because one thing too is the Book of Enoch was extremely popular during the time that Jesus lived in.
Yeah.
It was a time of people basically had Messiah fever, and a lot of the sort of Jewish sort of eschatological ideas that were popular at the time came from the Book of Enoch as well.
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that Noah took a lot from that. Dang.
yeah, because I was listening to the Russell Crowe interview and he was talking about how they pretty much got any source they could of information from Noah from anywhere, and they kind of all combined it all into one movie.
Wow.
You know what it
The idea
sounds like?
they were going
Sounds like a Marvel movie to me.
Totally,
Like,
yeah.
Somebody said, I'm going to make a Bible movie, but we're going to base
I
it
think
off
people
of
were describing
this
it as
bit
that
and that
originally.
bit and all that kind of... Dude, I saw that clip and I'm like, what is this? Like, why is he fighting rock monsters? What is... why
Goes
is no
from
one
fighting
rock
Gauls to
monsters?
fighting golems. I was like, what is
Yeah.
that?
I mean, that's one of the things. It's like it's got to be a shock to the system if you've never read the Book of Enoch or even heard of it
Yep.
or heard about what's in it.
Yeah.
You're like,
You
what
know,
is
that
this?
scene
Yeah.
probably is like you have no reference for what that scene could
Someone's on
possibly
some drugs
be.
when they
Could
wrote
you
this.
imagine if like somebody took the whole the youth group to go see that?
Yeah.
Like, oh no,
I'm sure a
from the
few
flood,
churches made that mistake.
The dove,
yeah.
You know, the final act's going to be the water resides, the doves are coming together. It's going to be great. No, he's on a mountainside fighting rock monsters. What? So anyway,
It's like taking the youth group to Evan Almighty.
well, speaking of
Huge
Almighty
mistake.
and that kind of thing, this movie's powerful. Like it's pretty dang good. My first time watching it was last week when we sat down and watched it. It was pretty.
Now you gotta watch Noah.
Now we gotta watch Noah. Yeah, maybe we should have
A Russell
Frankie
Crowe marathon.
and watch Gladiator. No, watch The Rock and Noah with him. There we go. I'm sure he'd love that. Shout out to you, Frankie. But yeah, I thought this was freaking powerful. I loved Russell Crowe in it. Apparently, like I was looking at some behind the scenes stuff, which we'll get into. But dang, there was a ton of really interesting stuff. The whole Oliver Reed stuff when he passed away during production was interesting. The writers, I think the guy who originally wrote it, the David Franzoni. So he penned the original script and stayed in long in the process when the movie came out, or when they were making the movie, I should say. And he was saying that he was recommended to pitch it to Ridley Scott, who then went on to pitch it to Russell Crowe, which got his attention on it. And I think I'll read in one of the trivia here, which we might as well go through. I have a couple IMDb trivia stuff for you guys. Let's just hop right into it. I'm always weird with IMDb, by the way, with their trivia. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but some of them's like, oh, the Gladiator soundtrack's one of the most best-selling albums in the world. And I'm like, wait, what? And so I look at it, it's not even the top 15. And I'm like, oh, like,
Well, maybe at the time they wrote the article, it was.
yeah, or maybe at the time it was. But dude, Titanic came out the year before, so it's
Titanic would have beat everything.
It beat everybody
for like a long time.
And then before that was surprisingly The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston.
People did love that soundtrack. Though.
It sold 44 million.
Yeah,
And the one
it was a
below it, I
classic.
think it was like Grease or something. But the one at number
Grease.
2 of all time was like at 35. So it like smoked. It smoked it.
Dang.
So anyway, speaking of Whitney Houston and people who are super talented, Oliver Reed died. That was terrible.
dun.
I'm sorry.
Breaking news.
People who were talented and died.
So not just in the movie, he died in
Whitney
real life.
Houston
too.
and Oliver Reed
Man.
are pair and pair. So he died 3 weeks before they ended. Because Proxima was considered a key character, a clause in the movie's insurance contract would have allowed the filmmakers to reshoot all of Reed's scenes with another actor at the insurer's expense, about $25 million.
Dang.
That's like a quarter of the whole
Wow.
budget. However, most of the actors and crew were exhausted from the punishing schedule. And Sir Ridley Scott, it's funny how they call him Sir, but yeah, he's a Sir.
Yeah, he's
Ridley
knighted.
Scott did
Yeah.
not want to cut Reed from the movie. The script was rewritten and a body double and CG were used to give Reed's character a plausible resolution. What did you guys think about that scene? Just off topic real quick. Like
Which
the body
part?
double and the CGI. Yeah, we'll save it for that. Never mind.
All right. So
Anyway, next one. The opening battle scene was filmed in. Why did I copy this one? Let's move on. From the outset, Sir Ridley Scott
In
made it
England.
quite clear that this sword and sandals movie would not feature any of the genre's cliches of people lounging around eating grapes and drinking from goblets. He intended to create a more realistic vision of ancient Rome.
well, at least if you're gladiator circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, realistic is not exactly the word I would use for gladiator.
Yeah.
I had a few issues.
I mean,
with it.
sure, it's like there's no like mythological elements to it, but like realistic, it's
Yeah.
it's basically Roman Empire fan fiction.
Yep.
But were you not entertained?
Yeah, exactly. Twice. Bang.
Thrice.
I can't believe the Africans took him from his home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A man of his dominance.
Yes.
You think he would have like bodyguards or servants?
Well,
running
you know,
around?
he
They
was-
kind of killed them all.
Yeah. I mean, his whole family and his whole
Estate,
estate was just like
This still baffles my brain.
Okay.
William Nicholson had thought that his time on the movie was over when he returned home to England, only to receive a phone call almost immediately telling him that Oliver Reed had just died and that he needed to return to Malta to rework the script. Dang, that's crazy. So one of the writers went back right after he got home. Imagine selling that to, your significant other. Hey, honey, I have to leave again to Malta for another 3 weeks probably. So see you later. Over the course of the gladiatorial scenes, Russell Crowe lost all feeling in his right forefinger for 2 years after a sword fight. He aggravated an Achilles tendon injury and broke a foot bone, cracked a hip bone, and popped a few bicep tendons out of their sockets. That's pretty interesting. I was watching the behind the scenes on YouTube, and dude, they go hard in the fights. And you could see in the finished product too.
Yeah, listen to the interview with him. He was talking about that's where he got a lot of his major injuries. He like went all out and like said all those fight scenes. And as they were saying here, all the different injuries he had, which still affect him to this day. And he's like, because in the interview, the person talked to him was like, "Well, do you know how you got that injury?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I know how I got that injury."
You know what that reminds me of is Lord of the Rings, actually.
Yeah.
I've heard that Viggo Mortensen was people didn't like the people who played like the orcs and stuff didn't particularly enjoy the sword fighting scenes with him because apparently he would just go all out and beat the crap out of them.
One of those actors who takes it literally. He
look
doesn't,
literally, yeah.
doesn't pull his punches.
And you hear now stunt people today saying to the actors, no, just hit me as hard as you can. And when they do, they're like, okay, stop. I was watching another behind the scenes, and Ridley Scott was directing the opening battle.
Okay.
And he was like, well, can't you just do this or something? And then he's like, no, we were going to do this. And then he chops him he slashes his chest, and then he falls back. He's like, can't you do something more graphic, like cut his effing head off? Like, that'd be great,
Everyone does appreciate a good decapitation.
And speaking of the director, initially Russell Crowe had no interest in reading the script. He was in the midst of working on The Insider in 1999, which is a freaking awesome movie. We all need to sit down and watch one day. It's really great political thriller, and was completely focused on his portrayal of his main character in that film, Jeffrey Wingard. He was eventually persuaded otherwise by Michael Mann, who was directing The Insider, and he passed him the script from Ridley and told him he ought to take this Ridley Scott thing a bit more seriously. So that's all the trivia I got for you, boys. All right, so let's hop into the recap. Are we ready?
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so the film opens with this couple of writings. It says, at the height of its power, the Roman Empire was vast, stretching from the deserts of Africa to the borders of northern England. Over 1/4 of the world's population lived and died under the rule of the Caesars. In the winter of 180 AD, Emperor Marcus Aurelius' 12-year campaign against the barbarian tribes in Germania was drawing to an end. Just one final stronghold stands in the way of Roman victory and the promise of peace throughout the Roman Empire. We see you then, Russell Crowe, going through the fields, having some time with the lilies and the grain, and then he sees a bird land on a perch,
Tweet,
then
tweet,
fly
tweet.
away as he enters, and we see the horde of Roman soldiers. And then a battle commences after he has dialogue with the soldiers. There's a dog, of course. So what are you guys' overall thoughts of this this opening battle fight scene?
The dog was not accurate.
Why? Because he didn't die?
He wasn't from that time.
Oh yeah,
man.
that's right. I was like, that's a
breeding
really
was incorrect.
domesticated dog.
Breeding
Bruce.
selection, at that time was
Wrong wording, but
Yeah,
he was domesticated, and so were they at the time. But he was
mostly
he
domesticated.
was the wrong breed, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, you don't know that.
It's just a stray they found.
I mean, how much do we really know about ancient Roman dogs? I'm guessing not very much.
I'm sure somebody out there has spent many years of their life investigating
Yeah.
the canines of that era.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, then I don't know. David, what do you think of this fight scene and this really cool action like set piece that they made?
I think it's rather effective. It definitely sets the tone for the movie. And you just kind of like, it's really not even like the action itself is one thing, but it's like just the way, like the cinematography, the way everyone looks and their posture. It's just like there's this gravity to it, this weight to it. It doesn't feel like, some like cheesy reenactment or something. It's like, oh crap, something's about to go down here.
Like Game of Thrones, it's not like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
No, it's better than that.
Yeah, you get that heaviness just of them, they're all dirty, beaten up, like that, but they're still, a lot of them have like things on their bandages and stuff like that. So you can see that they've gone through a lot of struggle and stuff. And then again, with the intro, the setting of it saying, this is the final stronghold. So, you can really get that sense that this is the final battle, which they'll either go home or after one way or another. I was like, and it's just really cool that my one, I guess, I don't know, pet peeve per se or a weird thing, which I know is a little bit more foreshadowing, is this whole thing where he always grabs like the dirt and he like squishes it in his hand. It's like at that point it's all muddy, it's all trampled. It's like that's gonna be some nasty dirt and mud. Just thinking of like,
it's gonna make your sword slip out of your hand.
Yeah.
But it just, I know it's a whole foreshadowing again because he does that throughout the whole movie. With every time he goes to fight, he always gets the dirt, and also I think it's a little bit more of a nod towards him being more of a farmer. Like he was talking about that he wants to be in the next couple scenes where he wants to go back to his farm and just be a farmer.
Yep.
Matt, what is your take on this giant battle?
Well, I like the flaming arrows.
Yeah, that was cool.
I like the distinction between the army and I guess the men of Germania, how they're Germania. These Germans
in quotes.
are they're barbaric looking. They look like peasants, farmers, people that just pulled off the side of the road. Forced into battle.
A lot of them look like Vikings too.
Yeah,
They
they definitely
got
have that Mediterranean, not Mediterranean,
Germanic feel. Scandinavian.
Sorry, Scandinavian look to them.
Yeah.
The Romans, They look white.
Not,
look a little
not nearly as many
Sicilian,
Roman
you know?
noses as you would think.
Yeah, where's all the cultural diversity in this Roman army? You know, what's going on?
David and I think the purple Praetorian Guards, they come in later. I think they're in there for a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because they're still around
Marcus
Caesar
Aurelius
there, yeah,
comes in, but that's very false.
What color were they originally? Like, was it red or?
I don't think
Well,
the color mattered really.
By the way, we're not talking about skin color. We're talking about the
Uniforms.
the clothes.
Yes,
Dang
in
purples.
that- yeah, we're talking about the color of their clothing and their armor.
Yes, I'm not racist.
So,
We're not against
The-
purple.
out there.
We're not flying purple people eaters.
I had found some information that suggested that the Praetorian Guard generally would not have distinguished themselves by like the color of their clothing or their armor.
Yeah.
So the whole like purple clothes with black armor thing that they had going on, that they seem to have going on in like pretty much every movie that they appear in as characters, is just something that it like some movie started it, and then every movie since then just kind of like, yeah, let's go for that aesthetic. When from what I can tell, the truth of the matter is that the Praetorian Guard would have just in general looked like normal Roman soldiers.
Probably just better trained and
Yeah,
of higher
because
class.
like the idea that they were wearing purple too is a bit ridiculous,
Yeah, it's
because
royalty
back
and all
then
that.
purple dye was extremely
Ooh,
expensive. So only royalty and like extremely wealthy people
Yeah.
would have been wearing purple.
Yeah.
And yes, the Praetorian Guard were the elite.
but to outfit
But-
that many.
They were not, they were still just soldiers.
Yeah.
I think it's more for, like you said, cinematography and all that, just so you can easily distinguish these guys from those guys in their different specialties.
And these soldiers are usually paying for their own gear.
Not that time actually. You would in the Roman Empire typically you would have one of the senators actually would have all the money. It's actually similar to like when the United States started like that. Like you'd have a rich person basically would buy all the gear and kind of fund the army, and then you bring them with you. And part of your wages was the promise of the spoils of it. And then when you got back, they distribute that amongst you, which I talk about a little bit after the battle, where but it's like that was one of the ways, in some ways, you would reward your good soldiers, is like give them land and stuff like that when you came back, especially as like a veteran.
That's probably why Russell Crowe's character is a farmer, because he was given all this land.
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
a general.
He's made it
He's
into
a general of the armies.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so the other thing with that, typically, like certain soldiers, you would, if you were a good soldier, they would kind of privately fund you. They'd like make you, they'd like, hey,
The higher class, for
you
sure.
did your service or whatever, but here I'm going to pay you to stay on and be, my bodyguard or my right hand man. And again, they had different helmets more so to define what type of rank they were and stuff like that. They're, kind of like the feathers would go in different directions and stuff like that to signify, who's who's in charge of the different sizes of the unit.
Just like a peacock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there was that one point in the battle that stood out to me that was so weird, where he's like, oh, and Russell Crowe's killing all these Germanic soldiers, and then he turns around and he almost kills his Roman soldier fellow brother, and then he's like, nah, and he doesn't do it.
And then he smiles.
And he smiles. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird.
That's like a normal military
if you're in
camaraderie,
battle,
though.
yeah.
It's kind of like the whole thing, like, oh, there's a buddy, at my back, so then you go back
Hey,
to
we're
back
still
and
alive,
you fight.
you know?
Yeah, it's like, I almost killed you. It's like, yeah. It's like
just
kind of
a-
a little bit of gallows humor
I got
type
a
thing or
terrible
whatever.
image in
He's
my
like, oh,
head.
you wouldn't have killed me. I would have killed you. Yeah, I was like,
Oh man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And then the choppy frame rate after the latter half of the bottle.
hey, for the time, that was top shelf there. That was top shelf.
The,
It's like, we wanted
the
it slow mo,
slow-mo.
but we didn't fill it in slow mo.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh well.
We didn't hire the slow mo guys.
No, not for
Cost
Yeah.
savings.
He
savings.
did hire them for the last duel, I would say, because there's a lot
Much
of
better.
slow mo in that movie. The one with Matt Damon and Andrew Driver and what's his name? Ben Affleck. Affleck. So there was I don't know if you guys ever seen The Last Duel at all. Came out a
Yes.
couple years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, I did.
A lot of the
It was
fights in that remind me of the fights in this almost.
Fair, yeah, I can see
But
that.
the duel
Cinematography
has a
similar.
lot more close-up fights. Like especially since
the last
in the
duel?
duel, yeah, in the last
Yeah.
duel, especially in the duel in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a ton of close-ups and the action's really gripping, really good.
Yeah.
What else was there? I think that's it for that. So moving on, we have
one more thing on that.
Oh, yeah,
I
well,
want to talk about. The interesting part for me, kind of during that too, was where Russell Crowe's character was talking to his right hand man. I can't remember his name, Octavian, I think it was. And he was Octavian was like, don't they know when they're defeated or whatever? And he goes like, oh, would I? Because that's the question I always think about too. Is like, especially like doing anytime you're in a battle or a war and like that, is like. What is our line that we would fight to the death for, or stuff like that? And that's the thing, is like you have the Roman Empire coming in again. The Roman Empire, as much as we glorify, and they weren't exactly the nicest people. Like I said, you had the 20 years of peace, which again, it was 20 years of peace for Rome, and that's partially because they burned down everything around them, around the Roman Empire. So there was nobody left. It took them 20 years to rebuild their civilizations before they could actually attack them again. So for Rome, it was a nice 20 years of peace, but for everyone else, it was your village in ashes, and you're starting over.
And the Germans.
Germans, you know.
And I
you
guess
guys have anything else about the battle, or no?
Just cool beheading scene with the
cool
sword
beheading,
stuck
you know,
in the
cool
tree.
flaming, cool guys on fire, you know, flaming swords, pretty cool stuff. That shot with the tree and the sword gets in the tree, that's pretty dope.
Oh, the trebuchets or the
catapults. It's very much. I see why Ridley Scott didn't want to do a Sun and Sandals or whatever he said about an adaptation, because you look at the old Hollywood stuff like Ben-Hur, and let's see, Ben-Hur. The 10 Commandments is not included in that, but I think of Ben-Hur, and even especially the music. By the way, the music's really good in this. Hans Zimmer does a good job.
Sounds like,
but it sounds like a mix of Ben-Hur and Pirates of the Caribbean. Like it's very weird.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Like the motif, I was listening on the way home, and the main motif's like dun 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 dun. I was like, what the heck? This is totally Pirates.
It's Jack Sparrow.
It's Jack Sparrow, played by Russell Crowe.
I mean, that was. I feel like
that's just,
we noticed too in our other film.
Yes,
we notice is also done by Hans Zimmer.
Oh, that's right.
We notice a very Pirates-esque sort of feel to one of the tunes in that film, and then. I think you looked it up while we were watching it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hans Zimmer was actually the one who wrote the main Pirates of the Caribbean theme, right?
Yeah, he was one of the composers, but he wrote the main one, I believe.
Wrote the main theme.
Yeah, so my sort of theory is that Hans Zimmer was really just he knew he had something there, so movie to movie he was honing that, and then finally when he did Pirates, he's like, it's perfect now.
I second that. I was thinking that exactly. Do it until it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And that came out the year after this, I think, too. Pirates 1,
01 or 02
Black
or
Pearl.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it's good stuff.
So yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed the progression of it. Yeah, like I said, you can see like him growing in that song, that theme, those riffs, and that type of thing.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I think, because I was also like on the way home, you know what else it reminds me of is Dune. There's a lot of ethereal elements in there that he basically started with this, or more films before this, I should say. But I feel like a lot of the ethereal elements in Dune kind of like carry over to that too.
For Dune, all I haven't listened to the soundtrack of it or whatever, but all I really kind of remember is like weird, like mechanical noises, like
there's a lot of reverse and like weird effects.
Yeah.
You got the woman screeching and stuff. A lot of stuff played backwards.
I think
anytime you have a desert scene, you have to have that.
I think too, the Dune. I think it was post Inception, so that was. I think that was
Inception was a big
was
part.
kind of a that was kind of a turning point for Hans Zimmer. The Inception soundtrack,
yes,
is where he kind of like. I think that's kind of the movie where I think he kind of found his identity as a film composer. Is Inception. So Dune, I think, definitely, to me, the soundtrack falls into that kind of post-Inception sort of thing.
Yeah, and also the, you have Inception, but then you also have Interstellar, where he kind of like got global fame after that came out too. Like he found his like identity, you'd say, with Inception. But dude, the Interstellar theme's so pretty. Like Hans Zimmer's great. He's great.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of where he became most well known for.
He's like John Williams to Nolan, That he's John Williams to Nolan, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
That John Williams was to Steven Spielberg. So
Fair.
there we go. That made very little sense the way I phrased that.
We know what you mean.
He's the John Williams
He's the John Williams to.
to.
How would we say that?
He's
The peanut butter to my jelly.
I'm sure Steven Spielberg said that to John Williams.
Steven Spielberg.
You made me a lot of
John
money.
Williams.
You're my Uncrustable.
He is to Christopher Nolan as John Williams is to
Yes.
Spielberg.
There
and
it is.
Lucas.
There we go. Yeah.
All right.
There's another director. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so moving on, the battle happens. The dog somehow stays alive. Marcus Aurelius, after the battle's over, is like, thank God, we won. And now they've conquered pretty much all the land, apparently. And then we cut to the carriage where Walking Phoenix really wants to make out with his sister, but he doesn't.
The common theme through the whole movie.
He doesn't. He thankfully doesn't do it, but makes out with his father when he gets out of the carriage instead. So he loves his father.
greet him
Marcus
with a
Aurelius.
kiss.
Mwah, you know. And I can't remember. Russell Crowe's like, "All right, I'm done." Maximus is ready to retire.
Yep.
And then we are greeted with Walking Phoenix and Marcus Aurelius.
Yes.
They're at a party in the evening time, celebrating the battle and the victory, and
As you
lots
do.
of political
Yeah.
talk is happening. And man, Marcus really likes Russell Crowe. He really loves Maximus, and he's like, "You're the son I never had, even though I have a son. You're the one that I love, and I don't love my other one, you know." I wrote some amazing moral scribblings in my private time, and I had no time for my children. So, at least in this movie version, apparently. And so we have a standoff between Walking Phoenix and Russell Crowe, and they're talking to each other. And then finally, Marcus reveals to Maximus
Yes.
that he wants him to be the heir. All right.
Not
And
With
then,
the mission, though, of handing back the country to the Senate.
Yeah,
and
with the
removing the
intention.
Caesars. Yeah.
So what do y'all think about this? The political play, the ending of the battle, more like the political play, the story, and then the inevitable death of Marcus.
It's kind of a cool element. It's definitely not what you would call accurate or realistic in any sense. I have never heard that Marcus Aurelius wanted to get rid of the empire and return Rome to a republic.
It's a hard thing to hand over something like that to somebody.
It's a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, because then what are you going to do with your life? I mean, you're going to become like the English royals, and like we're still a monarchy, but we just don't have any power, but we're keeping our money.
I get where
Keep it
they're,
in the family.
I get where they're coming from,
And
but
you know, it's like too, it's so out of place because like, yeah, Greece and Rome definitely contributed to modern ideals of democracy for sure. But if you really look at how democracy developed in the West, it has a lot to do with the Enlightenment era. And since the Enlightenment era hadn't happened in ancient Rome, I find it very unlikely that anybody at the top of the heap of the Roman Empire had thoughts of, let's give Rome back to the people. No, nobody thought that way.
Especially in 180 AD.
Yeah, nobody thought that way at that time.
Yeah, because that's one of those times like when you become in charge, you kill anybody who potentially could come back to take control. So it's like, so if he did hand it over to the Senate, then ultimately they would come and kill him. Just like, spoiler, the next part they try to kill him because he has the following of an army. He has a whole legion at least, if not more than that, and he has the history and the renown. Which again, the whole Roman culture, that is what you're living for, basically. You're living for that renown. They're definitely a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of a civilization. I mean, obviously they still have their class system and all that, but it was one of the few countries at the time where you could kind of change your stars or change your class by simply joining the army, which was the easy, quote unquote, easiest way, and then being a victorious soldier in that.
well, yeah, it's like being a modern day celebrity, but you actually were you were giving up something, and there was some risk, in the physical part. You could lose your life.
I wonder if Marcus Aurelius ever did the dance that, this one.
Marcus Aurelius, they really downplay him and they make him weak, which is weird.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, he's extremely old in this movie.
Well, when you're played by Dumbledore, I mean, you gotta look old, I guess.
But even his character, like his lack of, I don't. I feel
like there's not much depth with him.
Yeah.
Than what could have done, but this movie's already 2.5 hours.
Yeah, he
what
pretty
else can
much
you do?
exists. He
Exactly.
pretty much exists as a vehicle to hand over the
plot.
story to Maximus and whoever Joaquin Phoenix plays. Commodus. There we go.
Commodus.
Yeah, I just that part I wish. I mean, it would have made it 3-4 hours, but a little more Marcus Aurelius, the tough man. Even though he's old, he's tough mentally, and obviously we know that he was one of the greatest historically. So obviously he was doing something right, and just to watch, I had a big issue just to watch him die so easily and lack of thought, no one was around to even protect him. You think he would
his
have
guards
bodyguards
weren't there.
at all times?
Yeah.
Because who knows who's going to kill you? Just that lack of that struck me as he's not a moron. He's going to have people around him. He's sleeping, even if he's talking to his son that he doesn't like. He's still going to have bodyguards. So that was a big issue for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, it's Richard Harris. He's a great actor, first off. And then you got Russell Crowe, another great actor. But in terms of the story and the historical stuff, we're not going for accuracy here. So you do have room to be flexible with that.
Yes.
So, but thus he has the one very last hug with his son. A little
Final embrace.
Yeah, final embrace. His son, Commodus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he hugs him a little too tight.
Smothers him.
And he smothers him to death.
Pulls the old jujitsu move on him.
But before that, we have Russell Crowe talking to the chick, the sister.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I had a kid with you once, right?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. What are you talking about?" And then, not really. But then he goes and chills in his meditative state with his little figures of his family. And then he talks to, young actor who plays his assistant or whatever. He looks super familiar.
He's been in a lot of things. He's been in Sons of Anarchy. He usually plays kind of that kind of a role, like a follow-up or assistant character. Because he obviously has distinct scars on his face.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. There's been a few other things he played in, but Sons of Anarchy is probably the thing he's best known for.
Tommy Flanagan.
Yeah.
Cicero.
Cicero.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's cool. I've seen him in a couple things.
I like in this part where though it kind of shows in some ways it gets to an actual heart of a soldier for the most part. Most soldiers, they, especially at that point, at that point you're killing people with swords and stuff, so you get to see people's life leave them and stuff, where shooting them it's a little different. But with swords and stuff, you get to that point where it's you realize kind of even now the vet community, is reviewing the wars you've been in and stuff, and what was it all worth it? This is still pretty fresh, so he's is it worth it, type thing. And then I just want to go be a farmer now, I'm done with killing people. It's I just want to go. And so then, then thrust back into it, and he, hates politics. So again, being a soldier, nice thing, like I said, is you can just follow the orders, and whatever they tell you to do, you go do that. Whereas politics, you got to plot and plan and scheme and all that stuff. And most soldiers typically don't like that. They like things a lot more cut and dry, because war typically is a lot more cut and dry, because if you make a mistake, you're dead. And if or it works out, or you're alive and somehow won, so.
Yeah, and Marcus made a good call. He picked the right guy, I would say.
Yep.
But he made a bad judgment call, because this guy don't want it, first off, which is his own choice. But also he'd misjudged his son, and he's like, "Oh, my son wouldn't kill me."
Yeah, which is
well, let me tell you, pal.
He's the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love too, he's when he's talking to Russell Crowe about this, Russell Crowe's "But you already have a son." And he's like, Commodus is not a moral man. So it's if he knows his son is not a moral man, probably shouldn't be alone with him.
Don't have a private conversation.
Yeah, when you deliver the news that he's not going to be the next emperor.
I don't know if it's completely related, but when Marcus is talking to his daughter, and he says, "If only you were a man."
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
yeah. It's oh, geez, who's the favorite in the family?
Yeah,
here?
exactly. It's who?
Let's do it. If you're gonna give it back to the Senate anyway, let a woman rule. At this point.
Well, I think the point of that line was
to
illustrate that it would have been socially unacceptable
This isn't
for-
Egypt.
Yeah.
And nobody would have respect for that time.
Yeah, exactly. There was Rome. Rome had very clearly delineated gender roles.
Yeah.
And that was just a thing. So it really was just kind of to highlight that, you know, that his daughter was like, you know, the good one in the family,
Yep.
but because you know,
Gender.
she didn't have the right plumbing, she just wasn't it. There was no realistic way to make her his heir, you know.
So yeah,
She can go to get surgery.
not at that time.
And not
At
at
least that way.
time, no. So Marcus Aurelius is murdered by his son Joker, Joaquin Phoenix.
Joker.
And then he then tries to go kill Russell Crowe, Maximus.
Well, he doesn't personally.
Not personally,
No,
but
no.
his head of guard does.
Yeah.
So he sends him out, sends the purple dudes to go do it. And him and his little Russell Crowe's like, I gotta get out of here. Something's up. Something's going down. I think he killed him. And then his little henchy guy next to him from Sons of Anarchy is like helping him. And then he's hiding. He's like, oh no, he's captured. And then they capture him, lead him to the woods. He freaking murks all of the guys, Russell Crowe.
A pretty cool scene.
Really
That's like
cool
a John Wick
scene.
in Rome.
Yeah. He's like Roman John Wick here, and he murders a
One
bunch
of them couldn't
bunch
get
of
it out.
gingers. He murders them. And he's like, your sword, the frost makes your sword get stuck or something, right? Or,
Yeah.
What's the line? It's like the frost.
Yeah, the frost makes it stick.
Frost makes it stick. Hooah! And kills him. And then he then has a standoff with a dude on a horse, kills him, takes his horse, goes and travels for who knows how long back to his homeland. And we see an intercut of him traveling and being weary and injured, because he is injured as well. He's doing this while he's injured. He got stabbed a bunch of times. And as he's traveling home, we're in a clips of him, of intercut of the purple people going to kill his family, and they run over his son, which is just very terrible, very rude. And then he rides up on the hill. The horse falls. He runs up to the house, and it's in ashes. And what does he see, Nick? What does he see after that?
His wife and kid hung, and a whole bunch of people dead. His servants and stuff like that, all dead around. So then he weeps on their feet, and I think he buried them, didn't he? I think the next part he buried them.
Falls asleep next to him.
Yeah, because like I was saying, like at that time when you took over, you went very Machiavellian. You kill everybody who potentially could come back to bite you when you're old. You know?
Yep.
And you don't put up with any of that, so it's like
It's just a kid, just a baby.
yeah. But babies grow up, and then you're much older by the time the baby grows up. So
Yeah.
it
This
definitely
could have
is
been
that.
a really good episode of Vinland Saga, but Ridley Scott had a different direction. So, what do you guys think about this? The sad part, the snot, all of it. What do you guys think?
Was a lot of snot.
There
I
was
was
a lot of
impressed.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did to get him to have that much snot, or if he's just a really good actor as far as he's able to
Synthetic snot.
Heck of a snotter, that's for sure. Well, I think I watched a short about it, and Russell Crowe's like, yeah, I did it, and we wanted to do it a certain way, but I said, no, Ridley, just let me do it this way. And so he explained it to him what he was going to do. And so he goes up to him, and he does the scene. He kisses her feet, and it just a bunch of snot comes out. But he was acting. He was really doing, really into it. And then like after that take, Ridley Scott's like, do it again, but with less snot this time.
So there's more snot in the first take.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know
Wow.
if
He's
he's
like blowing bubbles.
It's terrible. So
It's a very emotional scene. Yeah,
Yeah, very
definitely. It's
emotional.
you come back from war. You've been fighting for your country, and basically the government comes and kills your whole family and says, "We want to wipe you off the face of the earth."
what do you think, Matt?
The soundtrack.
Oh, dude.
Amazing at
Yeah.
that point. Really open. I mean, it makes you feels the feels.
The feel, yeah, definitely.
I like how the land looks like what I would imagine the land to be, dry, and you don't see the house a whole lot, but it seems like an old hut. They didn't go astray from showing the hanging. I mean, just impactful.
Yeah, Yeah, because they don't really show the people die per se.
No,
They imply it a lot. Like I said, you see the horses running at the kid,
Yep.
and then it like cuts away, and the kid's in the road. And they run across, and you kind of see like, oh, it makes like a high a sound there, or whatever. And then the mom's running like, no.
Yeah.
And then,
It's very tastefully done, I'd say. Like, it's not over violent or graphic.
well, some would say that leaves. Oh, when you leave it to the imagination, it's actually worse. than
Absolutely.
actually
Depends
see
on the
So,
person.
yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
But it's vulgar enough without being like distasteful.
Yeah, because I think too, this is 2000, so it's kind of before the whole Walking Dead and all that stuff, where they
Yeah.
just had to keep upping it, the
Or
violence
even,
level.
Or even in The Last Duel. Like, it's so graphic. There's
Yeah.
so much graphic stuff in that film.
There's still quite a bit, like I said, the decapitations and stuff like that, cutting people's arms off.
It's
Yeah.
But again,
the
it doesn't
right
necessarily
timing.
show it though. Like it shows like the arm fall per se or whatever,
It's
but it
just
doesn't
enough to
spark the imagination.
And if you're not a psycho, you can use your imagination like you would read a book.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
And so I think that's a good way to portray a movie, is just enough and to get you to think like you're reading a book.
Yeah.
That's
Use
one of
that
the things I am
imagination.
sad with now that we have color and stuff like that. In old black and white movies where you can do the shadow duels or whatever, stuff like that, which it can imply stuff again, which you don't really see, but you kind of like watch it still. So it's kind of hard to do that with color, but this is kind of the same way, I think, of cinematography doing it that way.
Yeah.
That reminds me of, have you ever read the first Hunger Games book at all?
I haven't
Part
read the
of
books,
it.
I've only seen the movies.
Part of it.
So in the book, it's different than the movie. The movie, in the film, they like briefly eat at the bad guy at the end.
Okay.
Like the bad like tribute or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the book, they like are camp out in the tree all night, and he's on the ground. And the dogs are like eating at him, and they eat, and they're like genetically altered, so they're mind controlled.
Yeah.
So like the dogs only eat his arms and legs, and his whole body. I know it's
So
nasty.
They
and
make
all-
you last as
keep
long as
him
possible.
going.
Yeah, and they don't go
Wow.
for the head specifically.
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
cauterizing
Oh my God.
bites or something.
There's
Yeah,
some
like-
messed up stuff in this.
yeah, because all night long, you hear them.
Yeah.
Yep. But David, what do you think about this? The whole moment, the precipice of him going into his next chapter. What do you think of it all?
Yeah, very, very well done scene, very tastefully done. Yeah, it conveys the emotion of like, what it would be like to walk up and see your house burned down and your family killed. It kind of gives you a little taste of that sort of sadness that you might feel. It's like but without having to like show their mangled bodies or anything like that. It just kind of like just everything, the cinematography, the music, the acting just kind of all combined together to give you that gut punch, like, oh my God, this is a heavy scene.
Super effective.
Yeah, and just showing again, it's the lowest of the low part. It's like you can't go much lower than this. Because even at the end of that scene, then he passes out on the dirt.
Yep.
Is he dead? Is he not dead? What happened?
Who grabbed him? Who is this? So, but speaking of grabbing him, Maximus is captured by some folks, and we have an interesting shot of him riding on Marty's skateboard from Back to the Future 2 on his back.
Just hovering.
Across the dirt and gravel into wherever we're going to next, which just happened to be Zucca Bar, Roman province, which probably is somewhere like Turkey or something.
Would you
I
say it
don't
was
know.
next
We
to?
actually looked
Did we
it
look
up.
it up?
We
Like,
looked
what
it up.
was
It was
No,
oh my
Spain.
God, I can't remember
I
now.
think it was part of Africa, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
It was in Northern Africa.
Well, while you
yeah.
look that up, he's also
west,
having
most.
visions of a grave side. There's inner cuts of, one could say, a spiritual sense to what he is seeing, and he's dreaming or something like that. And then he is greeted by the Juman Hatsu, and he asks him his name, and he says Maximus, and he says, who? And he says, I'm sorry, Maximus. And then he goes on, and then they go to Zucca Bar, where we are greeted by Oliver Reed, the famed actor, which I'll be honest, I don't even remember anything he was in. I want to say he was in an episode of Twilight Zone, but I don't know.
I just looked it up.
I got it right here.
So
Something like
yeah,
that.
I just looked it up. It's Zucca Bar is in Algeria.
Interest. Now, how
But-
far away is that from Rome?
That's
It's in North Africa?
yeah, it's in
North
Northern
Africa.
Africa.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, because remember too, they talk about it later. Is Marcus Aurelius didn't allow the games and stuff like that, so he had shunned away, supposedly in the movie, anyways, from Gladiator. So they were exiles.
Interesting. That's
Because
pretty.
it was not proper.
Yeah. So anyway, the guy from The Mummy comes and talks to Oliver Reed, sells him some slaves, sells him Jamon Hansu, as well as naked, by the way, sells Jamon Hansu naked, buff and everything, and as well as a
In the
very
buff.
clothed Russell Crowe,
Yes.
which was very interesting. Probably because he was a slave. So anyway, we are greeted with a Gladiator. I don't know how to describe it, David. Gladiator training facility, or
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially.
that Oliver Reed is. I don't even remember
Boot
the guy's
camp.
name of it. Yeah, boot camp. And there's a. How did you describe it, Matt? A very German fellow training the
Of white descent.
of white descent
You
training
pump,
the
you are.
He's like a
slaves and,
Lou Ferrigno.
he does look like Lou
Austrian,
Ferrigno. Not gonna
Except,
lie.
kidding.
Except he's a ginger.
Yeah, he's
very-
he's the German version of Lou
yes,
Ferrigno.
Yes. I forgot to leave. I left that part out.
What ethnicity is Lou Ferrigno? Italian?
I mean, Ferrigno
I think he's
sounds like an
Spanish.
Italian last
believe
name,
it's
to be
Italian,
honest.
Yeah.
But
from
I'm not
Spain.
gonna.
No,
I'm not going to assume. But it sounds Italian.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it very well could be. He's a true Roman. You know, he was the Hulk, and then he turned green. So speaking of green, we have green around the gills. Russell Crowe fighting the Germanic buff man, and all of his glory, all of his sweaty muscles and biceps that are glistening in the sun. By the way,
Well, he refuses to fight him first.
he refuses to fight him.
Because they're
So-
trying to assess, again, at the assessment, give him a different color depending on how lethal they are.
Yes.
And red if you're lethal, yellow if you're tame.
and green if you're dead.
Yeah, if you're meat. Yeah. If you're meat.
So also Jamon Hansu, I forgot to mention, he helped heal or helped treat
Did Jamon?
Russell Crowe's wounds with sand and maggots, which is very
Mags is pretty
Good.
cool, yeah.
yeah, they're very good. They'll take all that bad flesh.
It's
out of
actually,
you.
yeah, that's actually more of a real thing. Someone we know in the church was talking about that. Actually, their dad had a horse that had like this really bad wound, and that's what he had done. He had gotten a whole bunch of maggots because you could buy maggots, and he put it on the wound, and it eats off all the dead skin. So that's actually technically a real method.
That's cool.
I should keep some
getting
in
rid
my
of dead
pack
skin.
for work. That's what I should do.
Yeah. I don't know how long the life cycle of a maggot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I throw a piece of
Yeah,
ham in
keep
there every
it-
week. They'll be fine, you know.
There's the insect place where the James used to work. I think they grow flies and all that. So they probably have excessive maggots.
Yeah. So there's some back and forth. There's some talking. There's some scraping off of the symbol on Russell Crowe's shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody symbol, and it stands for SQ. Do you remember, David? SQ
It's
something?
SPQR.
SPQR, which
I,
stands for.
Also looked this up and completely forgot what it was.
Awesome.
But
Well,
yeah, it
let's-
signifies that you're part of the Roman soldier. You are a soldier.
Mm.
End
Of
of
the
venture,
Ro-
most
yeah.
likely, if you're going to have that.
Okay, SPQR stands for Senatus Populusque Romanus, which translates to the Senate and the people of Rome.
Yes.
So it's kind of a phrase that refers to the sort of the Roman government, basically. So having that tattooed on his arm essentially meant he was property of the Roman government.
Yeah, and I was doing some research. Apparently, it was very common in that day
Totally, yeah.
to have the soldiers have that on their
Yeah,
arm.
it's your
So
veteran
that's the one.
signature.
Yeah, that's the one historical accuracy in this, apparently. So, but anyway, we're getting ready for the fights, man. And Oliver Reed's saying, "You maggots are gonna go out there and make a show of it." Woo!
Die with honor.
I'm
Die
Oliver
well.
Reed. And then he has them go out there, and there's a bunch of gladiators already out in the arena. They're about to fight and kill him. There's a bull-headed fella. And oh shoot, it's a three-legged race. Well, not really. It's three-handed fighting because they're chained to a buddy, and Jamon Hansu and Maximus are together, and they're fighting the arena against all them gladiators. Pretty cool sequence. You know, it establishes who our main characters are and the group of gladiators, as well as their ferocity and killing of the bull. And the German guy lives. Jamon Hansu lives. Russell Crowe lives. And they just they murk all these fools.
German man loses his buddy though.
Yeah, well,
Just tugs him around.
yeah, he just tugs them around. But after that, we are greeted to the return of Commodus to Rome. And the death of Marcus Aurelius is very sad. In fact, the lighting's all gray as we're entering Rome. And there's talk in the Senate. There's some back and forth. Joaquin Phoenix says, I'm going to liquidate you guys. Not really. He doesn't say that. But he
Pretty much.
pretty much mentions it. And then the sister steps in and kind of cools things down. And then they go off and kind of cool in each other's corner. So lots of political talk, lots of stuff going on. And then we get the shot of the Roman arena.
You missed the first Are You Not Entertained, actually.
No, he says that later.
It's in the next part.
It's in the next part.
Is it?
Yeah. But he will say that as soon. But what do you guys think of all the political turmoil, the intro to the games, the guy's eating grapes, which is against Ridley Scott's thing. He's eating grapes in the movie.
Can't have Rome without grapes.
Yeah. So I don't know, right before we get to Are You Entertained, what do you think of all this transition in power and as Maximus is building his way up in the sands of Zucchini Bar?
I think it's good at pointing out the turmoil. It gets that across kind of how nobody really likes politics except for the politicians. You know, like everybody's always scheming and plotting and planning. And so even Commodus coming back, he's like, you know what? I just don't want to play this game. It's like, I'm just going to kill you all and get on, move on with my life. And, my sister, has the cooler head and is like, you can't kill them all blatantly, at least, you got to take your time and slowly take one out at a time or whatever. But she definitely leaned again a little bit more towards like her father's philosophy of, they imply that that to eventually give it back to the state or whatever, or at least work with the state, use the state is what she implies a lot there, for your good. So it definitely is. I think it does well at setting the stage for like what you're kind of expecting, because I said he definitely Joaquin leans heavily on the basically I'm going to liquidate you guys without actually saying it per se.
Yeah.
And it shows too that they don't really like him also, and so it does just a really good job of portraying what they're trying to get across, I feel.
Yeah, and two, this part is kind of like we see like kind of the beginnings of sort of how these two groups, you have the Commodus, and then you have the senators kind of like clashing, and basically they sort of both come to the idea of like, okay, if we get enough people on our side, then we can make a move and take out the other side, kind of a thing.
It's a mutual thing, yeah. Both of them know that they don't like each other and they want to kill each other. So
yeah. And they're just waiting on that right moment where they can, get enough support behind them to actually make the move, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how, it brings good like drama into it, I think, and even though it's, I guess, historically inaccurate, it's still good and fun, and yeah, it's still a good movie, I would say, in that sense. So, and I think overall, like, there's no like bad acting in this at all, except for, I don't know, maybe a scream from a Gladiator too, or there's I don't think there's really any negativity in that area, but.
And it's also like, it's a good setup for the the third act of the film. It's because you have like Commodus essentially stating that the way how he's going to get the people on his side so that he can get enough support to make a move, and Merc the other side is he's going to bring back the games.
Bring back the games.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's like debate between the senators, like, are you guys I can't believe he's doing this. This is so stupid, and he wants to take all the power for himself. And then like the sister's like, no, chill out, dude. Like there's a way to do this, and she's also trying to stay alive as well. So
totally.
Yeah. So, Matt, you got anything on this?
Not a whole lot.
Lots of drab coloring.
Yeah. This one's a little bit fuzzy in my mind. Not a standout part, but.
Well, what is a standout part though? Are you entertained?
Are you not entertained?
Which is our next part. He goes and just slaughters like 20 dudes, and Oliver Reed's character's like, bro, just give us some time. People pay a lot of money to watch you do it. Maybe make a little showy, And I think that was in the extended cut that we watched.
Yeah.
But not
a little
with
WWE.
that exact accent as well. But not in the regular cut. But anyway, he goes out there, murders all these dudes. Are you not entertained? I read somewhere that there's that the most famous, I think, behind the scenes thing from this movie, besides Oliver Reed passing away, was Russell Crowe being really mad at the writing, saying nobody would say this, and this I don't want to say this, and then he couldn't ad-lib something better, so he just stuck to the script, and so he kept saying, he kind of latched onto "Are you not entertained?" as like his thing, like, come on Ridley, like, are you not entertained? Like, I'm an actor, I'm the greatest actor alive. That was the quote that was actually came out of this movie apparently.
Definitely, yeah, I think the most iconic. Yeah, from that, everybody knows that it's become meme worthy even.
Yeah. So after this, we get Oliver Reed saying, "I'm going to take you to Rome, pal. And even though I hate you, I love you. You're a good kid." And then Jimon Hansu talks to Russell Crowe. I want to say about his family or something on the buildings or whatnot. And then we're off to Rome, off to the races. And all the slaves pile out. They're looking at they're looking at the statues, and Oliver Reed kisses the foot of a statue with his hand, and he's like, "I love this place. I'm back in my home country." And then he's like, "All right, baby, let's get to training." So after that, we get Joaquin Phoenix being really creepy, watching little boy sleep from Unbreakable. Yeah, the kid from Unbreakable. And he talks to the sister. We're getting ready for the fight. There's political talk. The kid finds Russell Crowe and starts talking to him. He's like, "Yo, you're my dad." And then, and then we basically go to the first one. And I want to just say, the shot of them going into the arena was so freaking cool. Like, it just sets the stage. It gets the mood finalized as we're in Rome. And also it's awesome because like half of that, arena they custom built to make it much larger looking versus the original Roman Colosseum. But they only made half of it because they're like, well, we can digitally alter it and copy and paste some stuff, and it's really effective. Like, it also aged really well. This being 24 years old, pretty well done. So
yeah, it's not like Terminator,
we get the fake ginger guy announcing the fight, and we get the fight between the people on the horses and Russell Crowe and his crew. And apparently they're supposed to die and lose this fight.
The Battle of Carthage.
Yeah.
Carthage?
So basically, it's supposed to be Rome versus Carthage as led by Hannibal. And so historically in this battle, the Romans were victorious. And so this is kind of a recreation of that battle for the entertainment of the people of Rome, and give them some pride in their history and all that. And so these Russell Crowe and his crew are playing the Carthaginians, and well, they're much like Hulk Hogan and versus Andre the Giant. There was a Andre the Giant was it was his time to bow out. He had to
take a knee.
I didn't know you were gonna pull that. That's a wonderful poll, by the way. That's awesome. The people out there that actually know wrestling that are listening to this, which is probably very few, they're loving you right now. Oh, Matt, what do you think of this whole fight scene with being the Carthagins versus the Rothagans and whatever they're called, and
The Rothagans.
Oh, and the clip that we saw, the shot that they kept in the film of a CO2 tank underneath.
You see the CO2 tank.
Yeah, the CO2 tank
underneath the
carriage.
The carriage.
Pause it just right.
Yep.
So what do you think of all this? This is pretty fun.
Man.
A lady gets cut in half. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that. Wow.
The one chick that was with.
She was on the chariot. Yeah, she was on the archers or whatever, and they knocked her off. And
I do remember the girl on the chariot. But,
I don't remember her getting cut in half.
She sure does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Well, there's like two of them because I think they have like double of each of the chariots and all that stuff.
Okay.
It also kind of like showing, him kind of starting his camaraderie with the people, because he kind of like there he tells them who he is. Like, hey, I used to be a general. They all knew from his tattoo that he used to be in the army, and he's like, so like, if you guys listen to me, we'll make it out of here. Because also being a soldier, he probably knows the history and kind of knows a little bit of it. So he knows again that they're supposed to lose, and so he knows they're fighting a losing battle. But able to pull them together and kind of forming his band of merry men, you know, to fight the system. So it's kind of the beginning in many ways of the rebellion, if you would say. Because again, he's changing history again, also, you know, to the other implication there, the foreshadowing and all that fun stuff with the cinematography. But yeah, just the Coliseum is just so epic, especially for like that time and just how huge, you know, it would be like, so especially, you know, you're coming from, you know, a little farm town, you know, which, you know, a little shack or something. And then you come to this giant, you know, at least, I don't know how many stories that is tall it is, but it's like huge. It's like one of the biggest things probably at the time, you know.
And it's still, well, partially
partially
standing today.
still standing, yeah.
But yeah, we get then lots of impressive looks. The people are loving it. Oh my God, this guy's amazing. Who could he possibly be? And Joaquin Phoenix like, hey, yo, I got my kid in front of me to protect me, so you won't kill my buddy. So, and he's like, what's your name? And he's like, no, and don't turn away from me. And he turns away, and then he's like, how dare you turn your back on the king? Or Caesar, Caesar, you know? And then like...
Which means king.
And then he turns around, and he's like, I'm your daddy. No, I'm Maximus, and I'm back, baby. And then Joaquin has a choice to kill them. He decides against it because he knows the people are going to be on their side. So he makes the wise call at the time to not murder Maximus and his crew.
Well, yeah, because the whole thing too is like it's his goal of having the games is to get the crowd on his side, and the crowd wants him to save him because he just did, you know, this epic thing. He changed history, in the arena because they, you know, everybody knows, you know, that he was supposed to lose. Somehow he pulls together this giant win, and so even though he like disgraces Caesar a little bit or whatever, you know, it's kind of like meh. I was like, but he was so entertaining.
Yeah,
we were entertained.
I can't help it. You know?
Everybody loves a good entertainer. So it's that kind of again also foreshadowing sets the mood where he actually ends up in some ways taking control of what they call the mob, the people over the Caesar, because the whole goal of Caesar here is to get the mob behind him so he can take out the Senate. Whereas like here, Maximus ends up taking over their cheer, their happiness, their stuff like that. He becomes the hero of the story versus Caesar being the hero. So,
and Joaquin Phoenix, can we just say his acting is really good in this? Like, he's such a not just a bad guy, but I think David, you brought this up, or Matt, or Nick, somebody, where he's a lovable evil man.
I said that he's someone you love to hate.
Yeah.
It's like you just like he's so hateable, like so hateable.
I mean, he is Joaquin Phoenix. Let's be real.
He's got that punchable face.
He's got that lip, David.
Yeah, that hair lip.
Hair lip. Yep.
But yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is definitely the perfect choice for as far as casting goes. He definitely just he gets across just how awful of a person Commodus is.
And I love how like after this he was also in Signs like 2 years later.
Yeah.
He's like a side character. He's like, hey, you know, I'll be the counterpart to Mel Gibson in this, you know. So all right, so what's next? We have he's taken to prison, I think. Or no, he's taken somewhere, and then the queen bids his like presence. And then she like cloak and dagger sneaks in there and talks to him. And he's
no. She doesn't sneak in there. Basically, she goes in under the pretense of she's a Roman noblewoman, so she could, have her way with the gladiators if she so desires.
Yeah, you pay money basically, and you can have a night with your favorite gladiator.
Yeah, so she kind of uses that privilege as a sort of cover to go and talk to him to get some privacy, basically.
Yeah, because that's one of the other things. Like gladiators, we think of as slaves, which they were, but they were well taken care of slaves, especially if you were good, because they want to keep. It's kind of in some ways like you're looking for Valhalla or something like that, you know. So leading up to your great glorious death, we're going to give you a pretty nice life. I mean, you can't go anywhere else, but it's like you're locked out, but you get women, you get food, you get all.
Well, they would eat ash and stuff. Like they would eat different things that would enhance their muscles and stuff like this, and different things the Romans thought would do that biologically. And
well, one thing too is this movie is slightly inaccurate about the historical element here is gladiators in ancient Rome actually were not like born to die. Like from what I've seen, from the research I've done, it seems like gladiators dying was more of a rarity. And the reasoning behind keeping gladiators alive is because they put so much resources into training them. If they die, that's a loss that the person who invested in them has to take. So realistically, the idea that, you know, all of them were just born to die is kind of not really realistic.
Yeah, it's like you had talked about at the night of it we were watching too. Whereas typically, the gladiator then would actually like fight someone who actually was scheduled to die or whatever because you had stolen or whatever.
Animal.
So you would be the finish. You'd be basically the executioner. You do it in a fun, entertaining way. You'd execute somebody who does no idea how to fight at all. So you could play with them and all that type of thing.
Yeah, the people who actually died in the gladiatorial games were like people like runaway slaves
and Christians.
And Christians. Yeah, who were they were condemned to death, and so you know, Rome thought it was a good idea to make their execution a little more entertaining.
You get a chance. See, we give you a sword, you know, and then you get to fight this super gladiator soldier. If you can beat him, then we'll let you go.
And then a lot more arranged fights between two gladiators that is already agreed upon. Like a WWE of
totally.
That's exactly what it is.
You don't want to lose your Dwayne Johnson or your John Cena.
So they're both getting recognition.
It was clearly more dangerous than the, you know, WWE because they actually had like real swords and stuff. But
you don't think a folding chair is just as deadly?
I don't know. Back in the day, they had the razor blades and they cut themselves, you know. For, to make it bleed. Or,
this is the modern Jake Paul Mike Tyson.
But yes, it's but yeah, definitely the gladiator on gladiator fights were definitely more of a scripted affair.
Yes, agreed upon.
Well, speaking of Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, the next fight we have in the arena is of this old retired gladiator and Russell Crowe.
So fitting.
So fitting.
Yes.
So we have them going out there. Russell Crowe and Oliver Reed are arguing again. I don't even know Oliver Reed's name, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep calling him Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed's like telling him, "No, Maximus, you have more to live for. Why are you doing this? You do this to democracy and then Russell Crowe just runs away up the stairs,
making me think of Star Wars.
Yeah. And so just
this is for democracy,
and just like in Attack of the Clones, they go out and there's animals and tigers and bears.
Oh my!
And then he starts fighting Mike Tyson in this fight with a bunch of tigers.
The Batu Sulutu
tigers, which I really love.
Tyson.
This is probably my favorite fight of the whole film. This was really entertaining, and even the CGI tigers at moments still really work. Like you can barely tell at times.
I couldn't tell.
And also, that's one thing I love about some of the CGI in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, is they just show you it just for a second and then they cut away.
Yeah.
Like it's barely noticeable because there's a lot of shots like that.
Yeah, it's another thing. Like you don't need to show the whole thing. You just need to get the imagination to go.
Exactly.
So I can imagine those tigers doing what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like in that Giant Bunny movie.
Wasn't
I telling you about that?
Maybe.
No. What are you talking about?
When you say bunny movie, all I think is Donnie Darko.
I can't remember.
Harvey? Is that what you're talking about? No, that's not. No, that doesn't matter. What
No,
does that have to do with Gladiator?
About jump?
What reminded me of it was the idea you show it and then it's gone.
It's showing and then it's gone.
Because the movie that's playing in the Matrix, when he goes to visit the Oracle and the kid's bending the spoon, and there's like the bunny rabbits rampaging on the street. That's an actual like horror movie where they like make mutated bunny rabbits. And it's a really ridiculous movie, but the thing that reminded me of it was like they were actually like the scenes with the giant bunnies. They were trying to actually use actual bunnies with miniatures. So in order to, they were like cutting that with footage of the actors in full size sets. So in order to make it as realistic as possible. they had to like where you would see in scenes where you would see both the actors and the bunnies, they would have to like cut to the bunnies like coming into the house real quickly and then immediately cut away back to a shot of the actor's face just to minimize that chance that you could be like, hey, that's a miniature and then that's not a miniature, you know, kind of a thing.
VHSs weren't as easy to pause. I was like,
Yeah, seriously.
In the resolution.
Yeah, you know, kind of. But yeah, it's the same thing with these CGI tigers. You only see them for like a fraction of a second at a time.
Well, also, I was looking at the behind the scenes as well. They're not just CGI tigers. They film them on a green screen and then they put them in here.
Oh,
So I think that's what is throwing me off. They're not
okay.
full CGI.
Okay.
But a lot of the points where they're trying to reach for Russell Crowe and trying to kill him, they're filmed in front of a screen and then inserted that way.
Yeah, but it's still the same.
It's still
thing.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like if they had extended shots of the tigers, you would be able to tell.
Yeah.
But because it's just like, you know, little bit at a time, you're like, it seems seamless because there's not enough time for your brain to actually notice all the details that would trip you, you know, that would trip you up, produce that uncanny valley effect.
So one thing they really do in that a lot, they do a lot of those quick cut scenes like that, like pow, 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 popping all around. So it kind of like also, you know, builds the intensity of it. You're like, oh, all this stuff's going on, and my mind's going, ah.
Yeah.
But definitely tastefully, because
Yeah.
like what comes to mind is like the new Star Wars films. There's quick cuts everywhere, and it's distasteful. It's terrible.
And then there's the super long shots where it's just CG, and all this kind of stuff. So it's not tactfully used.
Yeah,
in those at
exactly.
all. But it is in this. So speaking of Mike Tyson, he doesn't kill Mike Tyson, where everybody's holding their breath and they're like, "Is you gonna kill him?" And then they look at Walking Fish. He's like, "Thumbs down, do it!" And then he's like, "Rawr," and he throws away the weapon and he doesn't kill.
Disrespect.
Well,
Again,
you know.
defying the government.
Yeah, defying the government, getting the people on your side.
I thought you had
Angsty teen.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and before this, I forgot the soup scene where the Germanic soldier eats Russell Crowe's food. He's like, "Are you gonna eat it?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Okay," he thinks it's poison. And so the Germanic soldier, he's like, "I'm gonna." And so he eats, and he's like, and then he like pretends to die, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm joking, whatever. You're not gonna get killed this way. They're probably gonna get you in the arena."
Puny Roman.
I don't know. In Roman history, they would poison you too. They weren't shy of using.
Yeah, they weren't shy of that tactic, you know.
The more of the optics of it, if they could get away with it, they would have done it, and they would poison you.
Yeah. So after this battle, then starts the people with their love of Russell Crowe, and the behind scenes dirty politics of Joaquin Phoenix getting a senator on his side to manipulate what is happening in the Empire and the goings on, getting rid of the supporters of Maximus. Maximus reunited with his henchy man from Sons of Anarchy. He sends the henchy guy to go get something from the Queen. I think it's a message of some kind. And then Marcus meets with the Queen and the other senator dude that's on his side. And I think from here, there's more conversations, more political talk, real creepy stuff with Joaquin Phoenix and the sister. He's like, "I love you, but not in that way." And she's like, "Oh God, no," and gets out of there. And then she reunites with Russell Crowe that night. And then let's see, we have a couple more things, but basically Joaquin Phoenix tries to manipulate the son. And after that, then the political moves start. It's getting serious. They start invading the camp of Oliver Reed in the city, in the big city of Rome. And Oliver Reed, or not Oliver Reed, walks across the foyer as the soldiers are banging on the gate. And digitally inserted Oliver Reed goes to Maximus and hands him the keys and says, "Free yourself, pal. You've earned yourself a trip to Disneyland," which is in Sicily. And then they go and throw out and kill a bunch of folks. Is it Proximo who's Oliver Reed's character?
Proximo.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. He dies in a very
Dead as a dog.
dead as a dog. They killed him like a dog, and he died at this point in the movie's filmmaking.
Yes.
And so they're like, "What the heck are we gonna do?" And so they basically have a digital insert in the end before he dies as his last words, and it's actually a cut scene from when Russell Crowe ran away from him on those stairs. It was like a take that he had that they had but they didn't use, and so they put that as what his final words were, which is kind of cool because he like says something and then gets quiet and says it again. And apparently that was the shot they used before the final shot they ended up going with on the stairs. And so they put that and they just cut it in half and just put that as his last words, which works pretty well. I feel like they did it pretty well in this film. I couldn't imagine being a movie nerd at this time and going to see something like, how are they going to handle the death of Walter Reed? I mean, I'm not Walter Reed. Oliver Reed in this film. And then I'd be so mad. I'm like, they just put him in digitally. This sucks.
Well, that's what they did in Star Wars. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my! Don't get me started.
Wait, which one? Oh, you're talking about Rogue One with CG Leia.
Oh,
The
Leia?
Last Jedi.
Oh, I was talking about actually, the originals, because Obi-Wan Kenobi, the actor, actually ended up dying. And so I think it was Return of the Jedi. He was actually dead, so they imposed his images in
Really?
there. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Wait,
No way.
are you sure about
Pretty
this?
sure about
Watch
that.
out. You got Matt
fake
and David here. Careful, Nick.
No,
He's pulling out his phone. He's going to look it up.
Obi-Wan.
I know the person who died during the filming of the movie, or during or shortly after, something like that, was Sebastian Shaw,
Okay.
the guy who played Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't
Who's
Last
that?
Jedi. It was, what's the last one in the original?
Not Empire, but
Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That's why it's confusing.
Yeah.
But they did, in Rogue One with Leia.
That looks
Right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that one
creepy,
they did.
Leia
creepy
and Grand
CGI and
Admiral
Tarkin.
Tarkin.
Yeah,
But
Peter
they do
Cushing.
Yes.
they do it again in The Last Jedi as well, right?
I don't think they didn't.
they do it in the last one.
The Rise
When
of
she
Skywalker.
dies. The
Yeah,
Rise of
'cause-
Skywalker, they do it with
They
Leia again.
did, I think. Yeah.
As
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
dying.
Yeah. Well, no, they had to. Yeah,
'cause
you're right.
She
'cause
died
did, yeah.
during the filming
She died in
of
the
Last
filming,
Jedi.
but then she dies in The Rise of Skywalker, and they show her
Yeah.
as a C, on
Yeah,
on
they
a bed.
reused some footage
Yeah.
from Last Jedi, I think, to put in there. Just some random stuff of her talking.
I am
away.
mistaken. He didn't die till 2000.
Yeah,
Fake news, fake
Was it
news.
2000?
That
Yeah, it
is
says he
many
died in
years.
August of 2000.
Oh, I thought I had the assumption he died like 97, right before Phantom Menace came out.
And so he was born in 1914, died in 2000.
Dang it, the biography channel lied to me as a kid.
Is that where IMDb is?
IMDb saved
Somebody's
it,
got
yeah.
fake news.
Somebody's
in
Let's
there.
lying to you
see.
guys.
The
Sir
death of
Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness.
August 5th, 2000.
Good
yeah.
old Jacob Robert Marley from Scrooge the Musical.
But yeah, no, if I remember correctly,
kid.
in Return of the Jedi, the guy who plays Anakin, Sebastian Shaw,
Did he die?
He like died either during the filming or very shortly after
Really?
it. Let me see.
That might have been what it was.
Sebastian Shaw.
Well, while you
That
guys
was
look that up,
And they died in 94.
it was 94.
Okay.
So
IMDb lied.
Nobody died.
Fake news.
Somebody died.
Somebody died. Somebody probably
Talking
died
about-
right now.
Anakin?
Oh, you know what it was? You know what it was? You know what it was? There was like a it wasn't that he died shortly after the film. It was that he had died
After the
he had
release.
died so many years before a lot of the other actors from those movies had died.
Oh, okay.
Like his death was kind of like an untimely one. And so when you have the special editions,
Yes.
which were,
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
but then you had George Lucas wasn't even satisfied with the special editions.
Yep, did it again.
You had he messed with them again, and when he after the prequel trilogy came out, he inserted Hayden Christensen
Yep.
into the last scene of Return of the Jedi, and so a lot of people were kind of like, me among them actually, were a little miffed about that because Sebastian Shaw was like, had been dead since 1994, and that was his only scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And they're just like, nope, he's gone now. Replaced by Hayden Christensen.
How do you feel about Han Solo versus Greedo and how that was changed?
Oh, yeah, I didn't like that either.
Because in the very original, it's very clear that who shot first.
Yeah, he
And
smokes
in
Greedo.
the ending one, they made it almost to where they shoot it at the same time, or
They-
it's the opposite
They
spectrum.
digitally altered Han Solo's head to move to the side,
Yep,
and
that-
Greedo
that as
shoots
well.
first. He
Yep.
dodges,
And
and,
in-
then he kills
dodged.
Greedo.
In one of the releases, they both shoot at the same time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
There's like 3 or 4
there's
different
like 3
ones.
or 4 different versions.
Yeah, but
Yeah, there's
it goes
too many
through a
versions at
timeline
this
where like
point.
it starts at this spectrum and it ends on the completely opposite.
It's weird. Yeah, it's like Laserdisc to VHS and Betamax, and then to DVD with the
Yep.
special editions. Really weird stuff. I don't know how we started talking about this.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
I messed it up.
but speaking of dual suns, red suns, all that kind of stuff, a new sun has risen on the day of the death of a ton of fellas. The German dude is dead, unfortunately. You have the Henchy guy from Sons of Anarchy dead as well.
Everybody's dead.
Everybody's dead. Oliver Reed's dead in real life and in the movie, unfortunately. And then Russell Crowe's captured. It sucks. Joaquin Phoenix is talking to a sinners guys like, hey, we're going to rule this galaxy. I mean, empire. And then, well, you know, we could do both. I mean, we're Rome after all. It's not like we're going to get extinct in like 500 years. And then they capture Russell Crowe. He's all high and mighty. He mocks the sister. And he's like, yeah, baby, we're gonna rule this empire. And then he goes to Russell Crowe, gives him a stab in the chest, and then they enter the arena.
And of course, the idea being that, you know, he wants, Commodus wants to get the people on his side, and he knows he can't just simply execute Maximus.
Yes.
So he's like, I gotta make Commodus's death the most glorious one possible.
While also making it fair playing.
Yeah, so that I can, so that I can sort of get the support of the people that he's earned away and onto me, basically. So he's like, what better way to go than to, what better end for a hero than to challenge the emperor himself? And of course, the idea it wasn't supposed to be a fair fight. So he's like, stab right before the fight and then put his armor on so they can't see the wound,
Yep. And just like John Wick with a pencil on his side, he hobbles onto the arena with Joaquin Phoenix. He grabs the sand and he puts it in his hands, rubs it together like he's about to do some badass gymnastics. And he then is hobbling around and Joaquin Phoenix is like, get away from me. And then they start fighting.
Yes.
And everybody's sad. They don't know if he's going to live. It's so terrible. It's white-robed Joaquin Phoenix man versus pre-Noah Russell Crowe. And who wins? Who wins, Matt? Who
Nobody
wins in the
knows.
end?
Nobody
knows.
Nobody knows. But before the final strike is made,
yeah,
let me mind you, he has a vision of his wife.
Mm.
He has a vision of a tomb of some kind. He hobbles forward like a dementia patient and looks into the ether. And then Joaquin Phoenix strives to strike him down. He knocks the sword out of his hands, punches Joaquin Phoenix several times, and then he threatens him. Some dialogue is exchanged.
Yes.
And then he holds him, cradles him, his head in his hands, and Joaquin Phoenix falls to the dirt. The Emperor
And before that,
is dead.
Commodus is crying out to his Praetorian soldiers, "Give me a weapon! Give me a weapon!"
Oh yeah.
And the general, I guess you would say, of the Praetorians says, "Hold your weapons, or you're a traitor." So that's part of the political. Part of the political agenda has started to take over that role that Commodus has.
Like if you can get rid
the
of
sides have clashed, and people have grown some cojones,
Yeah.
taking a stance, I
taking a
guess.
stance
Yeah.
against the Emperor.
And also, too, this is kind of, I think, payback, because earlier in the film,
Yes.
Commodus is trying to sort of assert his dominance over the, over the rest of the Roman government, the apparatus. And so when they learn that Maximus is not dead, he Commodus confronts the general and is like, basically like, somebody messed up. As like, and because the general doesn't want to execute the men who survived the encounter with Maximus and let him escape, essentially. And but the emperor wants them executed, and so but the general's like, they're good men. I don't want to punish them for this. And basically kind of Commodus like strong arms and was like, well, somebody's got to pay for this mistake. And if it's not them, then it sort of subtly implies that if it's not going to be them paying for the mistake, it's going to be him paying for the mistake. Yep. And so fast forward to this part of the movie, I think that's kind of like this guy's moment is like, he's like, finally I get to have my revenge, kind of a thing.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Yeah, Commodus totally messed up with that, where he, these are supposedly the most loyal guys to him. They helped him do the whole coup and all that stuff, and then he, ends up killing 2 of them, which they like, because again, soldiers build a camaraderie and all that, and so like this guy's crazy. I mean, they already know, his dark secrets, being his personal guards, that he's borderline crazy, anyways, and so killing 2 of their guys who they all kind of like is makes them not loyal anymore to him. As well as like the whole thing in Rome, technically too, there was a lot of the whole honor, and like that was a huge thing. So typically with certain mistakes, if you did mess up, it was you're supposed to kill yourself or they would kill you. So it was a common punishment. But again, that was kind of like a weird situation because Maximus had killed everybody who was out there. So it just would have been somebody noticing basically that these guys never came back, and like, I wonder what happened to them. So it's like not really necessarily like any of them messed up, because the guys who messed up are all dead because Maximus killed them all. So, but the only thing would be the withholding of information to Caesar, which again is the problem with being a crazy dictator, is people don't like to tell you the truth if they think you're going to kill them. It's like, life lesson.
Life lesson, right?
Yeah, but Commodus gets stabbed.
Yes,
stabbed and he's dead.
With the secret knife.
Like a dog. They killed him.
Dead, Jim.
He's dead, Jim.
Jim is dead.
So we get I also think it's poetic, this whole part of the movie, like the ending and the fight, and how it's poetic because you get what you want. Yeah, they killed him, and then he dies. You're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what each of them wanted in the end. It's what Caesar wanted. And then what Maximus wanted, he wanted to reunite with his family, because that's what he's mentioning earlier in the film. Yeah, and that happens. He's also, again, as they're carrying his.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
I saw it playing on the screen, and
the hoverboard.
Yeah, watch. Okay, so you turn around. Yeah, it's totally a hoverboard shot.
Yeah. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Gone full circle.
Yeah, so
see it.
He stabs the emperor.
Yeah,
he's dying while standing there.
Yeah,
I can't remember what he says, but he
talks about turning the Senate back, or giving the government back over to the Senate. And all that. These are the last dying wishes of Marcus Aurelius. And so.
Oh yeah, that's right. Just so beautiful.
But he dies from his wounds.
Dies from his wounds, fall to the ground, hoverboard, out of there, and he's reunited with his family. Is what he wanted. And it's a beautiful ending to a beautiful film. And apparently life goes on. And Demon Hansu, we get an ending shot of him burying the 2 little figurines of his family in the arena. Okay, so it's interesting. I'm looking at this. The dirt's like fresh. So it's either wet from the early morning dew or it's in the bloody sand that he died in, is my guess. Because it's kind of red in this shot. So
I think
it could be symbolic, or both of that sense. So, but then we get a banger ending soundtrack with this chick singing and Hans Zimmer's music, and he's like, "You're free, Maximus," and then we end on a beautiful shot, and the movie ends. Great.
Yeah. And one thing too about the ending, where he's dying after he's killed Commodus, it's like it's cuts back and forth between him in the arena dying and him walking through a field, seeing his family off in the distance. And so the idea is basically like, he's already in the afterlife, so to speak. Yeah. And he's kind of teetering on the edge, basically.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. So great. How much have you guys heard about the original Gladiator 2 concept or the script that was written for it?
It's very vaguely. I've heard a bunch of different things and different conspiracies with it. Like that.
Wow. So it was penned by Russell Crowe's buddy, Nick Cave, the singer-songwriter.
Cave.
I've never heard of this man. Apparently,
You've never heard of Nick Cave?
No, I'm a pleb when it comes to
Nick
music.
Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Never heard of him.
What?
No. Is that the same guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've never heard of him either.
Never heard of that guy either.
So apparently Nick Cave was asked to pen a script for Gladiator 2.
That blows my mind.
And the concept he came up with was Maximus is tasked by the Greek gods to go in the afterlife, by the way. He's tasked by Zeus and a bunch of the Greek pantheon to return to the world through resurrection, and they're losing a lot of power in the Roman Empire, and they're trying to figure out why. Well, turns out there's this guy named Jesus that's taking a lot of attention from the Roman Empire, and apparently, or from the Greek and Roman gods.
Wait, what?
And so the Roman gods task Maximus, and they resurrect him, and they have him go on a hunt to kill Christ.
Wait, what?
Yes, this is
Yeah,
an actual script that was written for
You
Gladiator
said
2.
Gladiator was 180 AD?
So this is the thing.
Yeah,
This
way
is the
out.
weird
this,
thing.
Yeah, 'cause that'd be
this
before-
does not surprise me whatsoever. I did not know
fan
that.
fiction. You know, like-
I did not
Doesn't
know
make
that
sense.
Nick Cave ever wrote a Gladiator 2 script, but hearing that it was him makes total sense after hearing the concept, because you guys have never heard of him.
No.
But I've heard I've known about his music for a while now, and I see him pop up in like non-music related things from time to time.
Mhm.
And every time I see him in a non-music related context, I always think, man, you just should have stuck to making music, Nick Cave. So this whole story, it's totally in line with this guy stepping outside of what he does best.
Oh man, yeah. So that's all I think I have to say about Gladiator. Do you guys have any final words or thoughts about the film, or how it inspired the God of War games, or anything like that? I don't know. What do you guys? What's your final thoughts, Matt? What are your final thoughts of the Gladiator?
I just think it's a good portrayal of Roman. I guess it would be mixture of fiction and like nonfiction.
Yeah,
you
lots of
know?
liberties.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a good war film. You know, I would put it up there with Saving Private Ryan. As you know, that's a good World War II film, but it's not. You know, it's not nonfiction. It's not fiction. It's it has liberties. It's just a good film.
Yeah,
You know.
really, really well done.
Yeah.
It's not an unconventional war film, that's for sure.
All right, Nick. What are your final thoughts on Gladiator?
Yes, I like it too. I said, like, we
Gladiator.
kind of talked about throughout the whole thing was how it everything's intentional in it. There's nothing that kind of in there just for the sake of it. I mean, I think with the extended thing, there's a little bit more things in there that weren't necessarily moving the story forward, but it's pretty solid at keeping the story going, kind of as we were talking about, and kind of foreshadowing, so you know kind of where it's going as you see it. You know, looking in hindsight, oh, this set up this, oh, this set up that. It's there's not a whole bunch of random-ish stuff in it. So I think in that regard, it's really good. It was interesting because after we had watched this one and then we watched the next movie we were going to be going into, is like this one though was kind of, the story's way slower because it kind of is telling a lot of the details and stuff like that. Whereas like the next movie we go into, it's kind of action packed. Yeah, everything's rolling and flowing. You're like kind of what's going on type thing and trying to keep up with it. Whereas this one was very intentional about kind of slowing things down for the dramatic part of it and kind of explaining things a little more in detail. So
Yeah. All right, David. What do you got?
Yeah, great film. Excellent historical fiction. I think probably, as far as I'm concerned, the best historical fiction film. Like, there's really, in that particular genre, there's really nothing that tops it in my book.
I mean, Cleopatra doesn't, scratch the surface for you at all,
No.
I don't think there's been a good Cleopatra, realistically, as far as like any of the movies everybody's made of it. It always doesn't work out.
I mean,
It's missing something.
I would
Yeah.
have to
I
follow
can-
that up with Troy.
Oh, yeah, Troy.
But Troy is technically fiction anyway. So once you realize that Troy is supposed to be fiction-ish,
It's a
Troy's more like mythology presented as if it were historical
Real, yeah.
fiction.
So if you don't fit that in the genre, then yeah.
But I mean, also Troy. I mean, I guess you could think of Troy as historical fiction, but in my mind, Gladiator just outshines it.
Gotcha.
Maybe not by a whole lot, but I think Gladiator definitely outshines it. Not taking away from anything from Troy.
Yeah, Brad Pitt's amazing.
Yeah,
You know?
Troy is a great film.
Brad Pitt's not
But
fat.
He's a what?
He's not fat. He's
his
still
prime as well,
He's
yeah.
still skinny.
yeah, but as far as
Just kidding.
answering the question of am I not entertained? I think Gladiator takes the cake for that as far as that's concerned.
All
Yeah.
right.
One other little thing on that was like listening to the interview with him about it with Russell Crowe. He says actually it's when he goes to Rome and stuff like that, he gets special treatment because of the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he represented it so well, and so it's kind of cool if you ever get a chance to listen to the interview with him. And he talks about the perks that he gets, being there, and they even call him, the 10th emperor of Rome or whatever.
That's the true
'Cause-
emperor.
Yeah, because Italians love it because it gave lots of publicity to
Oh.
Italy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is always kind of weird doing something like that. You never know if it's gonna honor the people that you're representing or if it's an insult, to them.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a little neat little tidbit I hadn't known until I heard the interview with him. So
He's definitely getting a lot of money from them Pope's exorcist films, They're letting him film in Italy and stuff,
Yeah.
so it makes sense. So, all right, well, let's take a break there, go potty, and then we'll start rock. What do you guys think?
sounds good.
Let's do it.
Bueno.
As none of us leave right away.
I wasn't sure if we were pausing the audio or anything.
All right, gentlemen. So The Rock was directed by Michael Bay, released in 1996, produced by Jeremy Bruckheimer, written by David Weisberg, Douglas Cook, who also wrote Double Jeopardy, if you guys ever seen it.
Oh yeah.
Freaking
Classic.
awesome movie. And Mark Rosner. Starring Nick Cage, Sean Connery, Ed Harris, along with the Doctor from Scrubs.
Yeah. What's his name?
With a budget of $75 million and a box office of $335. Woo! Made some money. And man, let's get into it. So let's see. Who should we go with? I'm gonna go with Nick.
No.
Nick, what are your thoughts on Rock?
It's epic. It's a Sean Connery special. It's good. I like it. I always had a thing for Alcatraz. I always thought it was cool. Still haven't ever watched the Clint Eastwood Alcatraz. I haven't watched that Prisoner one, but it's been cool. I've actually been to Alcatraz. I can't remember at that time if I had been there already because I went there on a high school trip. We had gone there, so that was kind of cool. I mean, it's a prison. Al Capone was there and all that. So it definitely is one of those places where, like, if you've been to it, it adds something to it, I feel. But it's kind of cool. I mean, it has, similarly, again, it's a good action movie. Yeah, I don't know if it has bad guys. I mean, there's kind of bad guys and bad guys. Or it's like Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery kind of are the good guys.
Yeah, you got the Navy SEALs who are kind of the bad guys that they're working
The good
with.
guys are the bad guys.
You gotta have the guys who are capturing Alcatraz who are the bad guys? Question mark?
Who are Marines, and I think they're supposed to be Rangers, or the guys
Something of
take
that
it over.
sort, special
And then
ops.
then you got the SEALs who come in and try to take over the island from these guys. And so I do appreciate it points out some of the struggles soldiers have with, again, having war stuff, because that's kind of the whole, no spoilers, but I guess we're doing it anyways now.
Yeah,
but it's like the preference.
If you
that-
haven't seen
This
The
is
Rock, if you listened to all the
Gladiator
Gladiator and thought, I'm really glad they gave me that spoiler warning for those who don't. Well, we're just jumping right into it,
We're
guys. So
reviewing it, yeah.
if you haven't seen The Rock, just
pause
go
the
watch
podcast, watch
The Rock,
and come back.
Come back.
But,
or you can just keep listening. It's up to you.
Because that's a struggle with soldiers, you again, justifying. I mean, you go and kill people. That's one of, like, the most heinous, things you can do. Again, even if it is for a good cause, it's kind of one of the ultimate moral sins or whatever. You shall not kill and all that. And so it's something how you have to justify with yourself. It's like if you're doing it for a good cause or whatever. But then again, you do it for a good cause, kind of similar to Gladiator, and then your government screws you over and kills your whole family because you became too powerful or something like that. Like where this one was simply these soldiers had gone out, they had done what the government had told them to do, they died, and their families weren't given benefits. And so this general is pissed off about it, and so he's trying to make a point. And he was at the end of his rope. He felt he couldn't make any other point other than taking these hostages, and then having the VX gas, which also time wise, this is kind of a roughly ish. Saddam was always kind of in the thing with that, with the chemical weapons and stuff. So again, just thinking back to kind of when that happened, he always had kind of that underlying tone already in the world. So people were already kind of scared of biological weapons and that type of thing. So as far as just the setup for it, it played on people's fears they already had. Kind of like if you did like a Russian thing, like the Cold War, during the Cold War, it would automatically kind of feeds into that. But this one is interesting because it does the twist that's actually Americans who are doing it. And again, their cause is just in some ways, but the way they do it isn't, I'd say, isn't the way to go about
Yeah, isn't
doing
the way
it.
to go, yeah.
But again, he's at the end of rope. He's tried all the other ways, which is what the kind of opening scene is.
Yeah.
Him explaining to his wife who's dead at the cemetery. He goes up to her tombstone and he's like, I tried everything, and like, so I was like, I couldn't do this while you were here, and now that you're dead, we're going in.
We're going in.
Or we're going with my plan Z or whatever.
Did you watch it in the theater?
I don't think so. I think it was all VHS. So I didn't go to the theater for much because actually Nick thing, but it's like my first movie I really remember. Well, first rated R movie I went to was actually Starship Troopers. It was in the theaters, and that was in the Willows Theater. Willows used to have a theater.
Dang.
I can't remember my first actual movie though was.
It was Young Frankenstein, as everybody
Nah, it
remembers.
wasn't. I'm not that old.
Frankenstein.
Not that old. But yeah,
Was it Blazing Saddles? No, you're not that old.
No, that was before me. So yeah, so I watched the VHS also. But,
Yeah. Okay.
pretty much everything. We watched a lot of VHS back in the day. I'll have to think about that. What was my first movie I ever saw? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
No, yeah,
While you
it's
think
like,
about
yeah,
that,
I was like,
let's move over to
Oh,
Matt.
okay.
Matt, what do you think about The Rock, and how did you experience it?
How did I experience?
Yeah, for the first time. let's
The
say.
first time, yeah. Well, it's a great movie. It's got Dr. Cox,
It does.
the one and only.
The one and only.
We
From
got
Scrubs.
Nicolas Cage,
Well, what can you say about him?
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Exactly.
Sean Connery, all I think of is James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that accent. Great movie. It's fast paced. It makes me think of, it's weird, but those pirating thing, like anti-pirating things on discs, how it
Yeah,
cuts and the music.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's
You
that
wouldn't
timeline.
download a car.
Download a car. I know it's off topic, but that's what it makes me think of. Great action-packed movie. Ed Harris,
Oh, he's great.
amazing. But
I want to say he's probably, like, I love Nick Cage and Sean Connery, and it's so easy to say they're your favorite character, and they're definitely my favorite characters. But dude, Ed Harris is really freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah, I love him too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's so awesome.
Ed Harris is like the best serious character. In
Yeah.
the best
movie.
serious military.
He's never like the main character. Like
No,
in
no,
hardly
he's
any
a-
of
no,
them.
never.
He's
He's a
always
Yeah, he's
Side
kind of
support
just like a
character.
character actor, sort of.
he's so good.
He was in Armageddon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the captain dude.
He's been in a lot of
general
things.
dude.
The only thing he was kind of a lead character in was like Westworld.
the TV series.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
TV series because he
That guy
played the
was in
older
that.
version of the young guy.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, that's not a lot of people have seen that, I would think.
It's funny how you brought that up because I was just thinking about the Fallout TV show
Yeah.
and how Walter Goggins is kind of a similar character. In
Exactly.
that sense. He's an older fella
Yep.
that's kind of basically the main character, but he's not the main character.
He's a character.
And he's basically and he's like a really good side character that the audience loves.
Mm.
And Ed Harris is that role in Westworld, and Walter Goggins is that in Fallout.
Fair.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So, which, by the way, they're filming season 2,
Yes.
and there's New Vegas signs on the behind the scenes picture.
Well, that's
Well,
what
they definitely
they-
set it all up.
You
so-
see the
Oh,
ending stuff, yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
set it up
Oh, man.
already.
It's good stuff. So, anything else matter?
I don't think so. We'll go through
definitely
the
go
movie,
through it.
but that's my overall thoughts.
Okay, okay. Well, David, what do you think, Mr. Oliver Reed related fella?
Let's
As
see.
well as you, Matt.
He's my
Are you
Faj.
guys related to Oliver
He's
Reed?
my Faja.
He's my fresh
Have you ancestored it yet?
Ancestry.com,
I'm,
that thing.
One and Me.
I
One
mean,
and Done With.
unless
What is the other one?
Oliver Reed
Three
was,
and-
you know,
Yeah,
put
so
on spray
20,
tan for his role as Proximo, we're probably not related.
Hey, it was the
What if he did?
breeding. The breeding.
The what?
The breeding.
About what? What?
It's
Okay, moving on. David, what do you think of The Rock? And
Anyway,
where did
The
you
Rock.
first watch it? How did you
Yeah, I think for me, my first viewing of it. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. My first viewing of it was actually on VHS. But it was our family didn't own it. A friend of ours, their family owned it, and so I watched it once over at their place, and I really loved the movie. And I remember really, really, really liking it to the point where they got tired of me suggesting that we watch The Rock anytime, you know, we were sent to the back bedroom to, you know, go pick out a VHS tape to watch. You know, I was wanted to watch The Rock again, and nobody else wanted to. So my experience was, it was kind of like it like struck a chord with me at an early age, and it was like, yeah, I really love this movie. And yeah, the funny thing is, though, as much as I loved it as a kid, I didn't really, after I grew up, I kind of just like, you know, I stopped thinking about it. Basically, I forgot about it. It was like, you know, just kind of like in the, you know, just one of those, like, you know, one of those funny memories kind of a thing. So watching it again for this was like kind of eye-opening, because it was this was my first actual like critical viewing of it.
Cool.
You know.
Yeah, that's cool. When we watched it last week, I was taken away by how Michael Bay is, or Michael Bayisms there are in the film, but it's really like it's the good kind. Every good Michael Bay aspect from the Bayisms we're used to nowadays, it's all positive in this film. All the side characters that are just randomly in there, like, I'm a stylist, and just the bus driver, what do you get, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Like all those random side characters have just enough screen time. They're not overbearing, but they stand out and you remember them.
Totally.
Versus stuff like the Transformers movies, like Stanley Tucci's character in the fourth one, John Turturro's in the first one way too much, and a bunch of other characters throughout his films, even Armageddon, with a lot of side characters. A lot of his characters and writing and or not writing, but just the collaboration between him and Jerry Bruckheimer sometimes they're so overbearing in the character department, and they're so annoying a lot of times. But in this one, I thought it was the perfect balance, because even in Pearl Harbor suffers from that, I think. But Pearl Harbor still has that nice balance, I feel. But this is, I think, a much better movie, I'd arguably say,
That's
than Pearl
bold.
Harbor. I haven't been watching it a long time.
Yeah.
I think I last watched it like 7 years ago, something like that. But and I still love it. I think it's a good film. But with The Rock, I don't know. It feels like, even though its inclusion would be a bit random, I'd say it's like definitely one of the best 90s films out there.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen everything from the 90s. I haven't seen Pulp Fiction. I haven't seen a lot of these films. As we've talked about before we
Pulp
started
Fiction's
our
a classic, but it's
I
weird.
know.
It's weird though.
It is weird.
It's
You
very
watch
odd.
it multiple times.
I mean, I've seen some of the other Tarantino ones. I just haven't seen that one.
I think
Yeah,
Tarantino films you watch twice and then you get it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction almost has like 2 or 3 plots going in
There's
the movie.
3.
So it's like almost, it's 3 different stories
Yep.
that kind of like overlap, but they're not really related. Or like they are, they aren't. It's like,
they,
so it's
they
weird
end
in
up
that regard,
overlapping, but it's
Yeah.
just the
It's
most minute
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. And I think just the random elements, the movie's so captivating. I just and thrilling, intriguing. It's like a soup of cowboy Babe Bruckheimerisms, and it's really great. Nick, you brought up the part about the soldiers. Such a really intriguing plot and so cool.
Mhm.
And of the time in '96, this was kind of ballsy to go with some plot like this. Like, it was not the best place to release it, I'd say. The best time to release it in. But let me I think it's to its benefit actually. So, and of course the weird isms of Nick Cage being Nick Cage. And probably a really great Nick Cage.
Is he a Nick
version of
Cage though? Because that's not the Nick Cage I remember.
He's definitely
Nick
He's
Cage.
definitely Nick Cage.
Yeah, he's definitely Nick Cage in
Yeah.
this movie.
Which I do have
Like,
a preference. He's one of my favorite actors. I don't know why. I just love the guy. But
I mean,
How can you not love Nick
He
Cage?
must have two
You know?
forms because I grew up
He
on
has two forms.
I grew up on the later generation of Nick Cage
That was
with
his
Gone in
Charmander
60
movie.
seconds.
Or no.
Yeah.
Next. And I know of the bees, but like
he knows of the bees.
Wicker Man.
like Gone in 60 seconds and like Next and those
Yeah.
Nick Cage.
Oh, Next.
Yeah.
I forgot about
Yeah.
Next.
His
Yeah,
most
Gone
serious
in-
roles.
Gone in 60 Seconds is one of
Much
those
more
where it's
serious.
like it's a less cagey Nick Cage.
Yeah. It's where he changed.
Yeah, me and I'm kind of with Nick where it's like I'm all for the Nick Cage isms. Like what movie? Oh, we watched oh no, we were going to watch.
Yeah, it
we
didn't
were going to
work out.
watch
Yeah, yeah.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive
Oh, I
Talent.
thought you guys watched it.
I know
we
we were
didn't
going
end up
to, but then my
doing it.
grandpa passed, and so it didn't work out.
Oh.
for
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
family
yeah.
stuff. But it
yeah.
is on Netflix or something like that right
Yeah,
now. I
it's
just
on
thought
Netflix.
I was like, David and I have to get together and watch that again.
Yeah, I ended up watching it, and it's a great. Have you seen it yet?
I have not yet. I've been really wanting to, and but I haven't taken the time to sit down. I kind of want to watch it.
We
with David,
definitely
so.
need to get some
Yeah.
get some time to watch that film because it's a good one. It's
Maybe
got
we'll
all
watch two films that Nick has not seen.
yeah, it's got all the cageisms you could ever ask for.
Which I love. As like I said, I wouldn't put him down as like the greatest actor, but I find because he's unique.
Yeah.
So he's very unique in his acting. He always kind of does the same type of role, but it's not like he's a great actor.
There's something
it's just that
about him.
It's different.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
different.
he brings something to the table that no other actor does. And that's kind of the weird thing about this movie is you have like Nick Cage being Nick Cage and then Sean Connery being Sean Connery.
Yeah. It kind of works.
And then out of all the characters who are actually like serious characters who are like actors playing their characters, not just actors being themselves.
Yeah.
Like Ed Harris is like
the
basically
pinnacle,
the star of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, when you take away the actors who are just being themselves,
Yeah.
Ed Harris is like the bright star of the movie.
It's like, I'm actually trying to act here, people.
And dude, oh man, let me just say I think that we should have not titled this instead of two films that Jake hasn't seen. We should have titled it two films that didn't have finished scripts when they were making them.
Really?
Because Gladiator was only like halfway done when they started
I did not know
production, and The Rock was barely done. I think when they did it, they relied heavily on improv in this film from
wow.
both Nick and Sean Connery.
Which is awesome. So that's why
And so it let them both just go into their pure isms, with Sean Connery being his Charizard phase in his life, and you have Nick Cage being his Charmander phase in his life. And Matt, I think we're used to Charmillion's phase of Nick Cage in our lives.
All
And
the
now-
evolutions.
And now Nick Cage with the massive weight of massive talent, or whatever it's called, and the pig, and a couple others.
Well, I was
He's
thinking
now
of Ghost Rider and
yeah,
it's
that's
an older.
Charmeleon Nick Cage.
Charmeleon. I was thinking Con Air is kind of
Oh,
Con
yeah,
Air,
that's another
yeah.
classic.
I kind of got there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
National Treasure is a big one where he's
that one's
he's different
He's
than what
different.
you guys
yeah,
are describing.
No, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
And
definitely
now,
different.
and
that
now Nick Cage is in his Charizard phase finally. You know? With the passing of Sean Connery, which he died last year, I think. He was like 95 or 92 or 93, something like that. But anyway, I think it's now moved on to Nick Cage. So I don't know where I was going with that.
one. Tried to bring it back into the
Talking
movie.
about
Yeah.
Charizard, Charmeleon.
Jeremy, yeah. There's 1, 2.
The evolutions of Nick
Nick
Cage.
Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some trivia again from IMDb before we jump into the plot here. This was from the movie's commentary. There were tensions during shooting between director Michael Bay and Walt Disney Studios executives who were supervising the production. On the commentary track for the Criterion Collection DVD, Bay recalls a time when he was preparing to leave the set for a meeting with the executives and was approached by Sir Sean Connery in golfing attire. Connery, who also produced this film, asked Bay where he was going. And when Bay explained that he had a meeting with executives, Connery asked if he could accompany him. Bay complied, and when Bay arrived in the conference room, the executive's jaw dropped when they saw Connery appear behind him. According to Michael Bay, Sean Connery then stood up for him and insisted that he was doing a good job and should be left alone. I thought that was kind of cool.
Sounds like my dad.
In the golfing attire. Second one here, much of Nicolas Cage's dialogue was ad-libbed, including the Zeus butthole line, which
Classic.
Michael K. Bay wanted to cut, but Cage insisted on having.
Yeah. It's a very cageism.
Directors frequently tell Nick Cage that his ideas are off the wall and offbeat, but Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer encouraged it on the movie. Michael Bay walked off the movie for a couple of hours once and was threatened with a $60 million lawsuit when the studio tried to scrap the scene where the SEALs were approaching the island from underwater. He held his ground, though, and they budged first. So I can imagine that's probably like, we can't have a bunch of Navy SEALs and camera equipment underwater in San Francisco Bay. That's too expensive. But it seems like he went ahead and went for it anyway.
You could do it anywhere, though. I mean, you could do a pool and make
Exactly,
it
you
look
could have
like
put a pool.
It's like
That's a good point.
Put some rocks on the bottom. You make it.
I
look
mean,
like,
this is a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
He's a
over
purist.
budget.
Yeah.
over budget.
Yeah.
Over
his middle
budget is
name.
the name of the
Over
game.
budget.
That's his
overbearing.
middle name.
That's-
Michael Over Budget Bay.
To be fair, I mean, it gets something more across. It gives a little extra if you actually are able to do it in an actual spot versus doing. Because yeah, dude, that bay is tough. Those waters are quick moving, which is part of the reason why they put the prison there and all that stuff. So.
And there's plenty of examples that he took from this film to Pearl Harbor with the water stuff as well, because that's a lot of stuff underwater in that film. And even in some of the other Bay films. But anyway, moving on. Don Simpson, the producer, died during production, and they tried at first to keep the news from Michael Bay until he finished the day's filming. Nicolas Cage accidentally broke the news.
dun dun dun.
That's terrible.
Don't trust Nicolas Cage with a secret.
He's the modern Tom Holland of the 90s. Nicolas Cage and Michael Bay differed as if the reasoning behind the early scene of Goodspeed naked with the guitar. Bay says it's because he knew Cage wanted to show off his body.
Yes.
So they decided to just get it out of the way up front. But Cage says he simply wanted to establish that the character was at home.
There was an intense scene right before that,
was-
so I mean, I can see that. You almost dying, kind of like sitting there, just kind of reminiscing about your life and going, "Is this really what I want to do with my life?"
Naked and play the guitar.
The weird thing about that scene is it kind of like, it's like really,
He's naked for
Yeah, yeah,
well, I mean,
yeah.
that,
you could be in the buff at home. I mean,
but
what's wrong with
that is
that,
like,
you know?
I mean, that's the
I wouldn't do it, but
That's the less
you know.
weird part about that scene.
Yeah.
The weird part about that scene is like they tried to shoehorn in like how much of a Beatles fan he was.
Oh, yeah.
dude.
So I'm wondering if that was something like that Nick Cage like insisted upon like being part of the character or something. Because his character in the movie is a huge Beatles fan.
Yeah.
And they shoehorn it into certain scenes like that where it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's probably part of the ad-libbing, like you're saying.
Because like
yeah.
he's naked playing the guitar, and the guitar he's playing is an Epiphone Casino, which is famous for being used by John Lennon, and he's listening to his Beatles vinyl that he just bought.
yeah.
Oh yeah, because in the he just got it.
$65 or whatever. right?
$65,
It's like that's
you know?
expensive vinyl.
One of the IMDb ones was like he hated CDs apparently at the time. Nicolas Cage or had a dislike for them, so he really wanted the character to be part of his record collection to be part of that.
He was ahead of his time. He
Yeah,
was
so
ahead of his time.
that's definitely a Nick Cage insert right there. So, and last one, Michael Bay's idea for a sequel, spoilers, involved a now married Goodspeed in possession of the microfilm evidence, who finds himself pursued by the government. With nowhere else to turn, he's forced to ask Mason for help. What do you guys think of this? I think this could have been cool if they ever did it back in the 90s. They should never do it now. Also, Sean Connery's dead. But wouldn't it be cool if they did a sequel and Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay came back and now the roles are reversed? Goodspeed and Mason now have to fight the government they were working for before. Just like
Kinda full circle.
full circle, just like the Rangers and the Marines were in this one. What do you guys think?
I think that would have been cool, primarily because back in the day, like movie sequels weren't always great. In fact, most of the time they weren't. But I feel like back in the day, at least, they at least tried to make them actual sequels. And now it seems like movie sequels are like let's just reboot the same story.
Yeah.
But with older versions of the characters, you
Yep.
know, kind of a thing. So it would have been cool to see it back in the day, just because they would have tried to do something actually different with the story. Nowadays, if they did a sequel to The Rock, like, it would just be the plot of the original movie with an elderly Nick Cage and a bunch of younger actors who were terrible.
What was I watching recently? And it was like a rock giant was formed out of the earth, and the rock giant was the mountain of the what's the faces of the presidents in Montana?
Mount
Or
Rushmore?
So the rock monster was in South Dakota as the presidents, and that was his face.
That is
What
weird.
was I watching? It was like a trailer, or
That
maybe
seems-
it's probably it's from the Noah movie. That's
Yeah,
what it's
that's what I was
from.
thinking at first. I thought you were going, we're going back to Noah? The golems? Yeah.
That makes no
Mount
sense,
Rushmore
but why
golem?
not? There's time travel in the Noah movie, guys.
I had
what
one.
do you
I had one
two
thought.
think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking who would be the characters that they would, I guess, hire on the government side. So Sean Connery's taking over that Ed Harris role, and I guess you could,
okay.
or supposedly,
Yeah.
it'd probably be more so Nick Cage.
I got an idea.
I have an idea
Okay,
too.
you go
first. No.
Okay. Adam Driver and Jake Gyllenhaal as like some guys who are questioning their loyalty to the United States, especially after stuff like Edward Snowden and all this everything.
Yeah.
And the interdimensional space demons and stuff like that. They're like, no, that's crazy. And then they meet Nick Cage. He's like, it's freaking real. It's real, man. That's my idea.
in the
just off the top of my
walls,
head.
I think you're really close. My idea was Pierce Brosnan and Ryan Reynolds.
Whoa! I'd watch
Like
that.
the
You have
combo.
another Bond character.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's awesome. Okay.
I think the Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal is kind of that.
Yeah.
It's easier to find the Nick Cage. I can't find the older character who
Yeah,
would take
Pierce
over
Brosnan
Sean Connery.
and
That was mostly a joke for Pierce Brosnan.
no, I legit. If he'd be down, that'd be. He did Black Adam. Do you think the man's not willing to get a check?
No, I'm not saying that. I just don't know if he's the fit
You
for
know
it.
what? You know what Bond actor I saw? The most recent Bond actor I've seen in a movie is actually
The last one?
is actually like an older Bond actor.
Okay.
Is Roger Moore.
Really?
He's still around,
Wow.
still acting, just in really terrible low budget movies.
Yeah.
Like Hallmark movie
What
status.
if, what
kind
if
of
we
things.
what if we get both? We get Pierce Brosnan and Roger Moore as like scientists or whatever, and then we get Daniel Craig as the like British dude or whatever that comes in.
Craig's like
Where's-
entirely different kind of, I don't know. I
He's
feel
entirely
Bond.
different Bond.
Yeah, he's definitely a newer,
Polished. He's
version
in
of
his
it,
50s though now.
No,
so
totally.
It could work. Just don't put Tom Holland in it. You make the young character there.
He could do young
even
Nicholas. He could do
relatable.
Nicolas Cage though, and kind of in some ways I could see him as a
I'd
Nicolas
pay
Cage.
money to see that. That's
Ryan Gosling.
Maybe.
Oh, dude, Ryan Gosling. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of good actors you could put in that sequel to The Rock.
Matthew McConaughey.
Where would it take place though? Rock sequel.
Not Alcatraz. Probably East Side. So New York.
Yeah.
Staten
Some New York
Island?
prison.
Staten Island?
Yeah, Staten Island. Some kind of landmark there.
It has to be in the United States though,
Yeah.
because that makes sense.
North Dakota, Mount Rushmore prison.
No. And then secretly, it's a National Treasure 3. That's what happens. It's The Rock 3, National Treasure, The Rock 2. Right now, yeah.
Oh man.
All right, let's get to the plot, guys.
Okay.
Before I do that, I'm gonna
Real
crack
quick, I
open-
was like, mine. I think I like the idea of it, but I think that the sequel they'd ruin it. Is just the thing. Is like
I think it
don't,
came
I don't
and
trust
went.
them with doing like a good
Yeah.
sequel
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
I think it came and went. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's unavoidable. You can't do it now.
So right, they'll just remake the original one like they've done with everything else nowadays. And
Which Pierce
start it all
Brosnan could
over.
do.
Yeah. It'd be like Batman will restart it in Spider-Man. Restart it like
Michael
10 times.
Keaton as
Yeah, it was Michael Keaton.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, let's
All right.
let's go through the plot.
Let's get on it.
All right, so we have the movie starting. We have fallen soldiers being shown. We have, we have what is this called? Jones Cane Sugar Soda. Let me see how it tastes.
Not,
Real sugar.
Not sponsored. Yeah.
That's not bad. You want some, Matt? David? Matt? You have a Dr. Pepper.
Dr.
I don't know if that's
Jones.
Dr. Jones and
Dr.
Dr.
Jones.
Pepper. Are you going to start singing the ABBA song?
No, I was gonna start
Jones,
singing
Jones,
like the intro
call me
song
Dr.
to
Jones.
James Bond films.
Wake up now. All right, so we have Ed Harris mourning over his fallen I don't want to say comrades. That's more Soviets. Yeah, it's comrades. Yeah, we'll just say comrades.
Comrades in arms.
Comrades in arms. And he's talking about like what you were mentioning, Nick, his wife. He's saying, honey, I got no other choice. I got to do this way. And then he walks off and just, man, I love old Michael Bay directing, or just Michael Bay directing, man. Like some of it's just amazing. I don't know why. He's just got the juice, as they say. So we cut to undercover dudes, Rangers, Marines, maybe. We have Dr. Cox infiltrating in a car. We have them infiltrating this military base with chemical weapons. Ed Harris is with Dr. Cox, and they're going into the facility. Then all hell breaks loose. They shoot the guy in the tower. They shoot the guards, and then they break in, and then there's a bunch of fighting, and then they're getting in there. They unlock the door, and it's cold. Lots of weapons around here. They unload some of the weapons. They pattern them up, and then one knocks over. Oh, crap, says the blonde guy, and he runs away, and they're running out there, and for some reason, there's plenty of time to save this fella, this fellow ranger.
Yep.
But they leave him in there, and within seconds, his skin morphs, his flesh falls apart, and he's exposed to, what's the chemical, David? It's
VX gas.
VX gas.
What
Yeah.
is it? Like
It's
Bug
chemically-
spray, human bug spray.
It's basically it's
Oh.
basic. It's
That's what it is,
basically.
yeah, that's
Yeah, basically,
I don't.
yeah.
Is VX gas like actually a real thing? I don't think it's a real
it
thing.
is, or there's something close to it. I'm not sure if that.
I mean,
one is,
essentially,
but-
it's a highly potent nerve gas. That's what
Okay.
what it's presented as in this movie. It's a highly potent nerve gas.
Synthetical chemical compound in organophosphorus class.
It's part of the phosphorus. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because the other thing is, again, like I said, this is after the first Gulf War and before the second one, so there's a kind of dead center in between those. So it's definitely, like I said, on people's minds in the real world, and so it's something that, them learning like, what do we do with this type thing?
Well, I mean, I
nowadays.
think this was there a chemical weapons scare back in the first Gulf War? I don't think there was, because this was before the whole weapons of mass destruction.
No, yeah,
and with Saddam kind of thing.
but they had already used before, because there's the I think it was Iraq, Kuwait. Is it Kuwaiti War?
Oh, are you talking about Saddam's invasion of Kuwait?
Yeah, because that's where I think is the first time I remember that they started using like VX or whatever chemical warfare. And that was one of the things that started that, which I can't. I think that might have been about this time. Can't remember when, or was that during the first Gulf, which still was in. 'Cause this was '96 when the movie was made.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? That was during the first Gulf War, because I'm pretty sure Iraq's invasion of Kuwait is what
Started it, yeah,
started it.
yeah, because you had 10 countries united and basically pushed it back. But yeah, he had started using chemical warfare at that time. So yeah, so that was a few years before. So I guess it was still kind of fresh in everybody's mind. I'm trying to figure out like the whole thing throughout the movie, like something we wish we could uninvent type thing.
Yeah.
But-
So
And the other thing is, just to clarify, they're Marines, not Rangers.
Okay,
yet. The
I'm
Rangers
sorry.
come in later.
I'm
Rangers,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh, the
After-
Rangers. Oh, that's who. Okay.
The guys who come in on the helicopters later.
The gas.
Yeah, you got to get it right.
I'm
because,
sorry.
you're in the presence.
I'm
of-
representing.
I'm
As much as
sorry,
Marines
Nick.
and Rangers love each other, we also have a love-hate relationship. It's like, Marines want to be Rangers and Rangers want to be Marines. So it's like,
So the gas affects your nerves.
well, we won't admit that
makes
to
you
each other.
convulse and basically tighten everything in your body to kill yourself, making you crap yourself.
Yeah, and
Whoa.
just
Until you
boils
die.
off.
You still crack yourself like an eggshell.
Yeah.
All your nerves go psychotic.
Like they bunch up. And they're like,
Yeah, well, yeah, they malfunction.
dude, that's freaking terrible. Makes me want to play Spec Ops: The Line, which I hear is like a commentary about all that. warfare.
Okay.
In I think not second Gulf War, but in Iraq and stuff like that later on. So anyway, so we leave old poor Beauty in the container, and he gets suffocated, melted, whatever, and nerves bunch apart. His butthole shoots, all
Yep.
this kind of stuff.
Across
And
the
then Zeus's butthole, that kind of thing. And so,
That's later.
That's later, lightning shoots out. Yeah.
think it's more guts than blood, but
So anyway, they leave him for dead. They sad. They wish they could save him, but which they could have. You
Can't
know,
repair a bottle
from what I
at that
could
time.
see from the timing. But anyway, so they leave him sadly, and then we cut back to Nick Cage putting out a Hawaiian figure that's on fire. But before that, there's this great, amazing Rubik's machine that they had too much time on as scientists, and they caught a Hawaiian dancer on fire, not real life, but a model. And he shoots it out, and then he gets the Beatles record. Woo! Yeah, get a Beatles record. This is awesome. I don't know which one it is. David probably remembers. I'm rewinding the film, and he's opening the package, and it is Beatles 1, is what it says.
the Black Album.
Beatles. Oh, just hits of the Beatles or whatever.
No.
I think he says in the I don't remember what he said.
My closed captions aren't working for the MP4
Fair.
file. So,
Yeah.
he says
I had it
right there. What does it say? What?
I had it really quick.
Meet the Beatles.
Yeah, it's one of the early ones.
Oh, okay.
It's like their second album or something like that.
$65 on eBay or whenever he bought it. That's not bad.
Random thing. I
Especially-
had a guy once offer me. He was cleaning out his garage, and he had every Beatles cassette tape. And he was like, "You take whichever album you want or whatever." And I was like, at the time, I was like, whatever. I don't care. Still, I don't know if you could get a whole bunch for cassette tapes these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how much a Beatles cassette tape
I don't
is.
see anybody actually collecting
We'll
those
have to
anymore,
look at
other than
that
just for the fun
eBay
of
it
it,
after.
not for money.
Yeah, cassettes. I don't think cassettes are as collectible just because I don't
They're
think
lame.
cassettes really. Well, I mean, they're kind of making a
quality.
comeback.
Just to be,
in the
yeah,
same way that vinyl had.
Yeah.
If I was cool
before.
though, still.
Yeah.
It
well,
has the
like-
cool physical factor.
There's actually
There's
a
that
sort
earthy,
of
yeah.
there is actually kind of like a little cassette comeback happening. Like I've noticed like
Really?
artists who do like special vinyl versions of their albums sometimes do like special cassette releases of their albums now.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a thing, but I don't think old cassettes are anything that anyone's interested simply because I don't think cassettes have like
Age well, yeah.
I don't think they
No,
age very
no,
well.
No.
Especially when you have to rewind them a
Rewind,
bunch.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess why they wear out, yeah, probably is because you have to keep going back and forth on it. So
Yeah, cassettes are making like a comeback. The format is making a comeback for like, like limited like collector's releases of like indie artists and stuff. But
I see it, yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's collecting old cassettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've bought in some like I think Lexi gifted me part of the whole Stardew Valley soundtrack was released on cassette.
Oh, really?
Like brand new. And I'm like, this is interesting. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna play it on a cassette, but this is kinda cool. I don't know how long that'll last. Once people figure out that cassettes don't last very long.
and then your machine eats them, and then you're like,
Yeah, or CDs, because I feel like we're on the precipice of CDs making a comeback, but I feel like we're just a few years off of that.
Maybe.
Quote me.
All right.
All right, so we are in the laboratory. They go in. They are trying to dismantle a bomb of some kind with a baby doll. They bring in a pack of cockroaches. I don't know what the behind the story is about this bomb, but they're in there in this chamber and they're in suits. They're trying to dismantle it. Oh man, it goes wrong. The baby starts throwing up pierced phosphorus gas or something like that. And basically, they whole action scene of them trying to evacuate the room and yelling at each other, cursing at each other, trying to inject into their heart something. Antidote for your nerves that calms your nerves, I think.
Yeah, probably
Before they
Muscle relaxant.
Yeah,
something.
muscle
Zeus's
relaxant.
butthole open, like something like that. But anyway, it's a foreshadowing of what we're going to deal with later in the film. So we get through that all. It's he cuts the cord at the last second in the bomb. Nick Cage rocking on like always. And speaking of rocking on, he's rocking on that guitar in the buff at home. His girlfriend comes in and she's like, "Hey, honey, what's up? I'm Prego." And he's like, "Oh God, I don't know. I don't know
Are
about
you
this.
sure?
Are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure?"
Yeah, this is a scene that was like really weird to me just because he's like relaxing and then he's going to have like a serious conversation about, his girlfriend being pregnant, but they have to shoehorn him. He's listening to his Beatles album and he's playing an Epiphone Casino
Yes.
while he listens to it. It's like, what?
Yeah,
Why
what?
was that
In
necessary?
the
Yeah.
nude. In the
In the
nude.
nude.
I think it's a little bit more of like a setup too, kind of what we talked about, because his whole thing is like he's like, this world is messed up and it's a terrible place and all this stuff, and then she's like, oh yeah, and I'm pregnant, and he's like,
Yeah, he's like, I would never bring a child in this world. They're just like, I'm pregnant.
yeah, and she's like, did you mean that? He's like, oh, I meant it at the time. That was literally like 2 minutes
In the
ago.
situation.
It's like, well, lots
Yeah.
happened since then, and like, and so I think in that regard, it's kind of also just setting obviously for the suspense later where he brings her to town during the bomb, as well as it implies again. I think it's a little bit of that where people, especially younger couples, they'll always have that kind of thing. Like, do we want to have kids? Do we want to bring kids into this messed up world where we all just try to kill each other or whatever? It's like, which again, if we don't, then everybody dies. So it's like,
Yeah, I feel like that's a conversation every couple has, and then I don't know. It's inevitably one or this.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like it's a silly thing to talk about. Honestly, have a kid, man.
it is a bit of a filler, yeah, because it doesn't really
Don't
add
decrease
to
the
the movie.
surplus population. Make it go big.
Yeah, the only thing I can see that
Don't be a Scrooge.
moving the plot forward basically is just that it adds a little bit of the love interest or whatever.
Yeah.
As there's a couple other funny lines in there, like I like when she comes in and she's trying to I think no, it's later on. Never mind. It's the later on part. I'll bring it up. But
We'll get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I'm pregnant. We're moving on. So, you know what? I meant it at the time. And then Ed Harris and his crew take a tour of Alcatraz Island.
which, if you haven't, you should. Alcatraz. Is
It's
cool,
pretty.
Cool
I
tour.
haven't personally, but I've seen some
We'll have
footage.
to go, Jake.
I've seen Alcatraz from afar, from the bay,
From afar.
from the shore, like in Lord of the Rings. I've seen it from the shoreline. Editors or whatever.
The thing though is in real life they don't actually have a tour guide. You have the cassettes. You put the cassette on in whatever language you listen to, and you pick which language.
That's kind
and
Video
then
guide
you walk
or
around and
audio
guides you.
guided?
Says, "All right, walk down to this," and then you walk there, and then it tells you about it and all.
Are
that
they
stuff.
cassettes that you put on?
They're digital now. I
Dang
think
it.
they
Probably
were.
were,
I think
yeah.
at a time they were
You
originally.
probably grabbed
Yeah.
your.
I think
There's
the first time I
opportunity.
went, but this last time I went with the family, they were actually all digital.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
That's interesting. I hope at least in the age of AI, I want James Earl Jones or Snoop Dogg
Yes.
to me as I go through Alcatraz. These fools were taking some time together in the cell. They weren't allowed to. It's like, oh God. Anyway, so moving
Arnold
on,
Schwarzenegger.
they're on the tour. Another Michael Bay insert character here about a very flamboyant, we'll say, tour guide, just doing his thing. And apparently Ed Harris couldn't stop laughing the day they were filming this because he was laughing at the guy's lines.
Yeah.
So he, for some reason, puts everybody in cages like, this is how these prisoners felt. And then Ed Harris and his crew shut the gates on them and they're now trapped in there. And I'm assuming they murder this guy? Yeah, I think they murder this guy.
No, they don't kill anybody.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The whole
No
thing about
deaths.
this, even like when they took the plant, was they didn't kill anybody. Because again, his whole thing is to make the point is just to get them to listen to him.
Oh, that's right. They
So
didn't
he's
shoot the
trying
guys
not
in the
to kill
towers.
anybody. Yeah,
They
shot with
tranked
trank
them.
darts.
Tranked
Yeah.
them.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
Or they shot him with beanbag shotguns, which
Something knocked
knocks
them
the
out,
wind out
but
of
they're
you,
still alive.
yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know about the guy who fell out of the tower. He might be dead. But
Yeah, he might be dead.
That's a
Well,
pretty big fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tranked everybody else, but they shot the guy out of the tower with a beanbag round, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
he's definitely has a few broken bones.
Yeah,
and
definitely
nothing
a
else.
couple broken ribs.
Yeah.
So their crew comes back on the helicopters to the island, land there. His crew.
So that's when the Rangers arrive.
Yeah,
so he has the
the
Marines
Ranger-
already
so
there, and
those
then the
are the
Rangers
Rangers.
show
Oh,
up in
okay.
the helicopters, the Blackhawks.
Gotcha. So they show up in the Blackhawks. They land. They get their thing going. Dr. Cox is standing in the background behind Ed Harris, looking pretty savage. I'm not gonna lie.
He looks good in a camo.
He looks good in
does.
camera and in the sunglasses. He's got a Chad chin for
Aviators,
sure.
yeah, he's got down.
And so we go through. They're setting up camp. They're setting up everything. They're going to station there. Ed Harris then goes through and briefs everybody and says, this is what we're going to do. And we're doing it for the good of those that have fought the good fight or something to that extent.
For democracy.
For democracy. This isn't Starship Troopers, David. And this isn't Helldivers 2, man.
Star Wars.
But anyway, so he's briefing his soldiers, and it's really, I think the scene really stands out to me because it's like you really resonate with him and what they're trying to do, even though they are, in quotes, the bad guys. It's really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome. I don't think I've seen something quite like this in a film. And again, I haven't seen every film. But dude, we have the guy from Clear Present Danger in here. We got like Dr. Cox, of course, is mentioned, and a couple other
Stubbs,
character actors. There's so many character actors.
Yeah,
in
there's
this,
a
by the
lot.
way. There's so many. So they decide to call Washington, D.C. and explain their plan and what they're planning on doing. And politics starts, and the military's like, yo, this is the dude. This is what you need to know about him. He was in Vietnam, and he is out to make a difference in this world, before and right now as well. So we have a really awesome scene of him talking on the phone, and I love how Michael Bay decides to show the camera on his face like directly, and he's looking down at them. I thought that was really dope. And just Ed Harris's eyes in this scene.
Intense.
It's like intense. And I swear, the dude who plays like the presidential staff dude, staffer guy, I
guy.
thought it was Michael Shanks from Stargate for a second. And I'm like, is that
almost,
Michael Shanks?
almost, yeah.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
But it sure kind of looked like him.
I think he's been in a couple other things too as a character actor. I can't remember yet what else. But
And then like there's so many of those too in this.
Yeah, because the one general, the other general at the other side, he's been in quite a few things. He's actually in Zorro also.
Oh yeah,
I
forgot about that.
But yeah,
that's pretty cool. So they're trying to figure out what to do. We cut to the roof, and Nick Cage is like, well, you're pregnant. You know what that means. So they are on the roof doing their thing, and then a phone call rings out, and he's like, oh no, I have to take this. And so he takes it, and it turns out the military need his expertise in chemical weapons because he's a chemist?
Chemical weapons
expert.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, he works for the FBI as a chemical weapons expert.
yeah, he's the cream of the crop. He's the very top, the best guy at it.
Mm.
The other thing, which is that's where I was gonna say is another funny line in that is the whole thing about them being pregnant and stuff because she wants to come along with him. He's like, no, you can't come along. It's just gonna be boring anyways. You'll sit in a hotel room and not do anything. And she like kind of guilts him into it and forces him to say that he wants to marry her. I think she's like, I'm Catholic, and this makes this very complicated because I'm Catholic and I'm pregnant. It's like,
oh man. And then after this scene, we get the introduction of Mason. I can't remember his last name, but his name is Mason something, and it's Sean Connery. We get a badass scene of him walking in cuffs with his long white hair, and he's moseying down that hallway with guards, and it's like a shot from a below, and it's like, dang, this is awesome. Sean Connery's back, baby. 007, eat your heart out, man. This is awesome.
Who's that Spanish or Mexican like long flowing hair?
Antonio Banderas.
Like 2000s.
No.
Rides like a horse.
Late 2000s?
No, I don't know if anybody.
Machete.
Danny Trejo, man?
No, it's along that line.
He's got kind of stringy hair too.
I think I know who you're talking about. I just don't remember.
Yeah.
You're talking about long hair, Spaniard.
Yeah.
Well, that's Anthony Hopkins in The Mask of Zorro, man.
I mean, that's definitely probably what they're getting it from.
I mean, Sean Connery was a Spaniard in Highlander.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is the thing. He always has his accent. He's one of the few actors who never gets rid of his accent, no matter what character he plays.
I mean, his accent gets worse with age because, like in James Bond in the Bond movies, he does his best to kind of keep his sort of Scottishness under control.
Yeah.
He kind of tries to
like a feral animal.
he tries to kind of almost sound like an Englishman.
Fair.
And then, but later, Sean Connery, he doesn't.
Yeah, in Highlander, he doesn't even try.
No. He doesn't care at all. He's got the thickest Scottish accent you'll ever hear. And he's somehow a Spaniard.
A Spaniard, yeah.
He's mixed.
So anyway, we get a scene where he's in the interrogation room, and somebody comes in, and he's like, oh, well, you're going down, man. You got some serious stuff on your record, and you were part of British intelligence or something. No, and they don't say that. Because he reveals he's with British intelligence later on. They say something about this John Mason fella and what was on the books when he got captured.
No, they say he was.
Yeah, they knew he's British. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's trained by. But
they say
he's a rogue.
they mentioned that he was with the SAS, which is British Special Forces.
Yeah. Okay. And that was, I think, the timeline for this is like 72 or 3 or something like that.
When he was captured.
Yeah, when he was captured.
Like that, yeah.
I think it was like something like that. And so they're interrogating him. They're giving him a rigmarole. And Nicolas Cage, after the interrogation, has a great idea. Send me in there. This is going to be, let me talk to him. And so he does this whole funny, like, tough guy role, which is pretty hilarious. And Sean Connery's like, who is this guy? This is like a joke, right? Some lines are exchanged. I think, what's the thing? Excuse me. He says basically a line from Dr. No, I think, or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway,
there's lots of funny lines in there, yeah, because he's making all these references to people who were imprisoned unjustly, which is what Nicolas Cage makes that connection, and so that's why they send him in there to talk to him, because like, oh, you understand him, maybe you can get him to talk, and so Nicolas Cage, being weapons expert or a chemical weapons expert, doesn't have really social skills or whatever, especially not interrogation skills. And so Sean Connery's kind of reading his mail and eating him for lunch and then get him to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, so get some ice cold water. He gets out of the cuffs with a quarter.
Yep. No, he has him unlock of his cuffs, which because he's like, well, how about a good show of faith and unlock these or whatever.
The quarter to
he unlocks them, but it's funny because
the glass,
because Nicolas Cage pushes back in the chair where he's like, can we get his cuffs unlocked or whatever? So he slides back further from him, and everybody behind the glass is like freaking out, going, well, that's one way to die,
And then Nicolas Cage goes back into the room, and as they're talking, all of a sudden, who pops through the glass really crazily is Sean Connery. Whoa, he punches the glass. Oh no, he draws a circle and then punches the glass, and he's like, oh, it's you, bro. Big Scottish monsters coming at you, man. And I can't remember what the name of the office
or something.
James Womack.
James Womack. Yeah, Womack. That was it. Yeah.
And Womack.
They then get they get a hold of him. They get him under control. They're transporting him and Nick Cage through San Francisco, and they are in a car. And at this wonderful moment, Nick Cage says a great idea of saying, you know what, I'm going to call my baby in front of this felon. I'm just going to do it. And Sean Connery picks on him. He's like, what are you saying? Who is that you're talking to on the phone? And then they get to the hotel. And at the hotel, what do? Sean Connery takes a nice hot shower and calls for room service. And there he goes. He calls room service. And let's see what happens after this. We get the stylist. Mm-hmm. We get the hair trimming, which we don't see on screen, unfortunately. We get the bodyguards and the agents just chilling out on room service. And then we get Sean Connery getting Womack and tying a rope around him and throwing him off the ledge, and a whole action sequence of Nick Cage trying to convince him to not kill the man or drop him. But I just want to say this scene with Sean Connery doing this is just amazing. Like him being like, I finally get my revenge on this dude. And then Nick Cage just being so over the top is hilarious. He's like, he does a really drastic, and he pulls his pistol out. He's like, put him down. He's like, don't do it or something.
Yeah.
Or put your hands up.
Something so sad. You can tell he's not trained in
very
it.
wimpish. Yeah.
Yes.
So then somehow John Mason escapes with the stylist as a hostage. Well, not a hostage. He's ascending the elevator with him. And then we get the big action sequence of the chase. What are your guys' thoughts on the chase through San Francisco? From the bus driver or the trolley driver trying to figure out, from Nick Cage stealing a dirt bike of all things, and the quips and
his Ferrari got damaged, so he had to
his Ferrari got destroyed.
It's a quintessential Michael Bay. And also, this is the sequence which has one of the prior iterations of what would eventually become Hans Zimmer's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, we were watching
exactly like it.
That's
Something like that, yeah.
And again, it sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, because Sean Connery steals the Humvee, and then Nicolas Cage is chasing him in a Ferrari that he acquires right there too at the hotel. And so then they're racing through. Sean Connery's running into everything in town, trying to break everything down. Because again, Hummers are built real tough, so you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, the Ferrari gets destroyed. Then he steals some kids because the kid's like, dude, you just messed up your Ferrari. And he's like, it's not mine. He's like, neither is this. And he kicks him off the bike and steals it. And hops on there and and follows him the rest of the way. And so
dude.
I love some of those things. So the other thing too, with the hairstylist, because there's a obviously gay, flamboyant hairstylist, and they bring him in like, oh, you can't use scissors. He's like, do they tell Picasso he can't use paintbrushes? or Michelangelo? He's like, this guy will kill you with that. He's like, yeah, you can't really cut off someone's balls with a pair of clippers now, can you?
Or a razor. A razor.
And then they when they're extending the elevator going down, he's in there. The hairstylist is like hiding in the corner, like burying his face. He's like, I don't care that you just threw that guy off a roof. He's like, I just want to know, do you like your haircut?
Oh, I love it.
And then like during the chase scene, the guy whose Hummer he steals, he calls him actually in the Hummer as they're like driving through the town. He's crashing and all this stuff. And the guy's like, of course, some German guy who's like, you stolen my Hummer got stolen. Or he's like, I'm only borrowing your Humvee. Or he totally destroyed it. Crashed it and all these things. But yeah, then they get to the park where he's meeting his daughter.
Well, before they get to the park,
he calls her.
He calls somebody that we don't know of. Also, he crashes into like a 3-wheeled, like I don't know how to describe it, Mr. Bean looking cart of some kind, and then crashes it into this like sedan and just fire explosions. I don't know what was in the back of that little like cart.
A lot of gas.
So that was
a meter maid car. So it's one of those police ticket cars. They drive around and they give you tickets. At that time, nowadays they're a little bit more cooler looking, but they're still a little 3-wheel cart like that. And so that was an officer's car going out giving tickets to people parking is expired or whatever.
They must have had some gas. Some propane tanks in the back or something.
Yeah, because the explosions definitely are ridiculous, like over the top, like flamethrowers and all sorts
running
of
into
stuff.
Like the telephone pole and rolling.
Every transformer explodes. It's like fire, taller than all the buildings.
Yeah, and some people I think would complain about, the editing's too fast and there are too many cuts or blah blah, but dude, you have to use editing effectively and use it to your benefit.
Yeah.
And you can use it through a fast chase scene. Also, by the way, Nick Cage goes gone in 60 seconds in this movie.
He does.
Less than 60 seconds.
And but I was looking at something and it was like, oh man, the new John Wick films, look at all those long takes. Well, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
But also like look at some of the old Jackie Chan films. There was a lot of cutting and different clips and the way they edited it together. You can still do that effectively. And I think Michael Bay and his technique, I feel like he does it a lot really successfully and throughout a lot of his movies. So.
Yeah, it adds intensity kind of to the scene. It makes it, feel faster and too like that because, since it's flicking all around, it makes your brain think. So your brain's like moving quickly and trying to, like I said, catch up. We talked about that earlier with Gladiator too. Yeah. Like in those action scenes, when you do that, it gets the senses all running.
What do you guys think of the trolley guy?
Hilarious.
The trolley guy. He was the police chief in Last Action Hero, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I kind of had the same shtick. He would just rant a lot, except in Last Action Hero, the shtick was that his ranting would eventually turn into just like incoherent mush. That was like nobody could figure out what he was saying.
Although he's like, oh God, Jesus.
Yeah, because he bumps him with the trolley with the Hummer to try to use it as a distraction to fall in front of the cars and all that. Yeah, and the guy, as soon as he bumps, he's like, oh God, we're gonna die. Like, save yourselves. Yeah. He's like, and then people are jumping off the trolley, and then he like wipes out and crashes, and then he's there, and he's like, where's that M? He's like, I'm gonna hunt him down. I'm gonna kill him. It's like whoever it is.
Dude, let me show you that.
Yeah, the scene of the trolley explosion. Exploding,
which is funny because it's all electric, so there should be no gas at all on that trolley,
and it just lifts
up in the air.
And it just stays up there for the longest time.
Yeah,
it's like 3-4 seconds.
Oh yeah, and then this where he shoots
down.
the bag. I forgot he shoots the airbag. You
can't get it down. He shoots the airbag and then he hops down. He's like, bro.
That's how the
then the guy's like, you just effed up your
Ferrari.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa.
It's the whole Avengers, it comes down around.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the precursor to National Treasure, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking National Treasure too.
Dude, he's like, yo, bro, you effed up your Ferrari. Well, that wasn't mine. What did he say?
Yeah,
He says,
neither is this.
Neither is
And
this.
then he kicks him off the bike. Yeah,
Oh,
steals
buddy.
his dirt bike. Yeah.
Oh,
And the
man.
guy climbs out of the trolley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are at the park. For some reason, Nick Cage has a bright idea to use his cell phone on the dirt bike to call his buddy to look up some information about next of kin for John Mason. He finds out there's an address in San Francisco, and that's where Mason's heading. So he gets to the address. 2 chicks walk out. He follows the 2 chicks to a park, and it looks like John Mason's got a family of some kind.
I think Mason is his first name.
No,
It's not
his
John
last-
Mason?
It's
Mason's
John
the last
Patrick
name.
Mason.
Yeah.
John Patrick Mason?
Yeah.
Yeah.
GPM?
They just call him by his last name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Which
Right.
is
it?
a classic government
Yeah.
thing. Anyway.
I
Yeah.
don't know who plays his daughter in this. She looks
Yeah, because they
super
call
familiar.
Nicolas Cage in his
Jade
Goodspeed.
Angelou?
That's his name,
Yeah.
last name too. So it's like,
Yeah, good speed, get in there. Or-
yeah, because
or
government
Godspeed.
typically call you all by your last,
Last
name,
name,
especially
yeah.
military. And
Oh yeah.
FBI
Okay, it
and all that
is. Yeah,
stuff.
it's John Patrick Mason. Okay. For some reason I thought they actually said his last name at some point, and like once in the movie, and then they just called him by his first name for the rest of it. I was mistaken.
That's okay. So we're at the park. We're catching up. I want to say Sean Connery's acting is really like he does not phone in this movie. He gives it like he doesn't change his accent, but hey, that doesn't matter.
that's fine.
Because he gives it his all. And I think especially in the scene with the daughter, like how are you going to do a lot of catching up in 30 years in 2 minutes, and how do you convey that in film, and especially in this kind of movie? And I think they did a pretty dang good job.
It's a lot easier when you have those 90s flutes.
yeah.
Oh my God, dude! Thank you so much for saying that, dude. The '90s flutes. Oh
loves
my
those.
God! You just
He's bringing him back,
David.
baby. He's bringing him back.
We're bringing him back, baby. Dude, those flutes.
Jake's looking for flute players out there to do audio. If anybody's
It's like the Titanic, man. It's beautiful.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Not that song. again. No.
Also, the Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Bring back the flutes, man. Dune Part 3. Bring it back. Dune Messiah. Let's do it. Paul Atreides is taking over the world.
Can you
galaxy.
imagine? Can you imagine some kind of
God Emperor.
some kind of like tender scene in
June 3.
in Dune 3 with the flutes?
Dude,
Desert flute. Yeah.
he's God Emperor? Oh my God, we need a theme for God Emperor? Oh man, give me the flutes, man.
Flutes and
Okay.
a screaming woman.
Yeah, it's like, and then it's like, okay, moving on.
Yep.
Where was I? They captured John Mason again. Leave the daughter be. Nick Cage follows him. Has some feelings toward John. He's like, oh man, I feel bad for this guy. I know more of his backstory now. And so they ask about John, the best way to get into Alcatraz, because, oh yeah, turns out he escaped from there. So there we go. And then they're saying that, hey bro, Nick Cage, what are you gonna do? And this a Navy SEALs guy is like, yo bro. Also, this Navy SEALs guy, you can tell they did this like 20 takes, and it just is very obvious this is probably the best one they had to do for his acting. And he's like, you're gonna go into a facility, blah, blah, blah. And he's really moving his lips a lot. And then Nick Cage is like, oh shoot, I'm going on the mission. And then he cuts to a bathroom and throwing up, and he's nervous about what's gonna happen. And then what happens, David? What happens after this? He decides to go on the mission.
Indeed.
I didn't have much choice, but
Yeah. There was no decision about it. It was already decided for him.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think for some reason the girlfriend's involved later, and she wants to be in San Francisco, and that's all done at this point. Is that
She
right?
well, no,
Right
what
after this, I should say.
no,
Yeah.
what ends up happening is they send after they send him on the mission, she like calls them up and like
Oh yeah,
and like
Yeah, so at the-
demands to know where he is.
Yeah.
And so basically the FBI dude is just like, well, you better come over to San Francisco and we'll explain everything there.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
which man feels like a plot device. Come on, man.
Yeah, it wasn't
Try to add
needed
more
because that's
stakes
the whole
to it.
thing. You start with the roof scene, and that's where he's like, "Oh, just come to San Francisco. We'll have fun, like that while we're there." And then so when the car wings with Mason, and he calls her. He's calling her to tell her not to come now that he found that's a real bomb and all that. And so then that's what he's talking about in the bathroom there when he's barfing. He's like, it's terrible. It's great. It's not terrible. It's like, my girlfriend's pregnant and she's coming to town. And the guy's like, well, I'll send a car over to pick her up and we'll bring her here to keep her safe, you know?
Yeah.
So she gets vaporized with all of us, I guess. I was like,
it's like, why? Why
it doesn't really help her. No, she's still going to probably die if the missiles go off.
Yeah.
But it's like,
So they go onto the island, they go underwater, they infiltrate the underneath of Alcatraz. And they're like, yo, Sean Connery, I've been John Mason. You brought us into a trap. What are you doing? Well, I didn't. There's one way out of here. And let me see if I can remember how to do it. And he's like, underneath this furnace is fire. And I have to time it just right. Now, I was 25 years old when I did this, and I'm now 55 years old, even though I look like 65 years old. And so he
but I remember the timing. Yeah, I remember how.
And so he somehow magically rolls his way underneath the furnace, which I don't know why it's shooting out flames, but it is. So we'll just go with it.
Bad maintenance.
And so then we get a bunch of the Marines are like, yo, bro, some movement's going off, you know? And they ask, John Mason opens the door for the Navy SEALs to get out of there. They get into the sewers and they're moving around the sewers, and we have some dialogue exchange between Nick Cage and John Mason. What's Nick Cage's character again?
Goodspeed.
Stanley
Goodspeed.
Goodspeed. And so they're moseying around down there. They found an access vent that goes up. It's got a motion sensor. Watch out.
Secret motion sensor.
Secret motion sensor. So they're able to somehow magically with mirrors get it out of the way, and they're able to not successfully get undetected and open the grate. So they open the grate. The Marines and Rangers valley together, and they position themselves in like, I don't know how to describe it. They're in the bathroom, like shower area of the prison.
And there's
like
ledges.
guard
they're up
halls,
on the guard walks. Guard walks around the shower room.
above.
And so they got the Marines and the Rangers on the top part, in an elevated position over all the Navy SEALs that just came up out of the shower drain. And so they holding them down, and they have their showdown
Mexican
between
standoff.
Ed Harris and I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who played in Terminator as
the guy
Sean
who's
Connor's dad.
John Connor. The guy who plays John Connor.
Yeah.
Michael Bean.
Michael
Dang.
Bean, yeah. Is he Bean? Oh, I didn't know that guy.
Michael Bean?
Whenever he's
Bean.
Sean
B-I-E-I.
B-I-E-H-N.
H-N, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which by the way, it was really cool to see him in this randomly.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in anything else except for
that's
Terminator.
cool.
I mean, he's probably been in a few other things, but
Yeah. But it was like, I think he plays in Double Jeopardy, actually.
Does he?
Yeah, I could be wrong. But anyway, so they have the Mexican standoff. Really well done scene. I thought this scene was awesome.
Lots of yelling.
Lots of
he
yelling.
plays
lots
with the
of
emotional
cursing.
part of it too. The whole thing where he's like, I know what you guys are feeling, and he's like, we feel it too. You know, we've all had our buddies pissed on by the government and all that. I was like, but this is the wrong way to do it.
And then so they're going back and forth, and like who's gonna shoot first, and what's gonna happen, and then some younger Navy SEAL decides to get like trigger happy, and unfortunately something triggers him, and he just starts shooting, and then all hell breaks loose. Really emotional scene. Like this is like just like to the editing, the directing, the action, just all of it. And Mason, by the way, and Nick Cage are down in the bottom, hearing all of this with another, I think, Navy SEAL, who gets killed soon after.
Yeah, because this is like you were talking about before, where they didn't have the slowdown things. This is actually where they do the slowdown, and they do slow, and you got their guys diving through the air, shooting two guns.
John Connor's like, and he's like, platoon.
You know, like, all the drama, and they're just lighting them. The Marines and Rangers are just lighting them up because they're from an elevated position, looking down on them. Because again, it's a prison, so it's designed that the guard shacks have the advantage, or the guard walks. Yeah. And so there's nowhere to hide and all that. So they just get wasted.
So we get quite a bit happens during this aftermath. John and Mason and Goodspeed are going through the sewers. Goodspeed's like, he's gonna run away. What do I do? You got a gun? Try to pull him. And he's like, okay, that's a good idea. Fails at that. Mason just disarms him immediately. Yep. They grab the radio, try to radio back. They are just moseying around. Sean Connery gives wonderful, amazing speeches during this time.
Which part?
Look at this.
Oh yeah, his face in the water. Yeah, because the Marines,
yes.
they figure out that there's 2 guys still in the sewer, so they drop like a big bomb down, firebomb into the sewer,
Random
like clean out the
huge,
rats,
like,
clean out
So he
the
drops
rats.
This, yeah,
Napalm
huge like
bombs or something.
napalm,
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
propane tank thing down there that blows up and shoots fire all through. So what Jake was laughing at was Sean Connery dives into the water, him and Nicolas Cage, and shows Sean Connery's face with like a surprised look on his face, like
Mouth opening.
he swallows a whole bunch of water.
So yeah, they miraculously lived through it by hiding underneath the water.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, and this is why I take IMDb with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
In the trivia, they were talking about how Sean Connery specifically wanted the water a certain temperature, and he wanted it really, really warm, like in the 90s.
Fair. I mean, he's an older guy, you
That's
know.
how I
but-
like
Yeah, it's like a
he doesn't want to get
sauna.
hypothermia or
Yeah.
Well,
or,
the thing is,
pneumonia.
they did that, but then literally the next day, 2 of the stunt divers, got stomach flu the day after. So it was more like they heated the water, but he became an incubator for diseases.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
So yeah, they decided to not do that after that day of filming.
fair.
Let's see what's after this. They were able to get out of the sewers. They get their hands on the bombs through various sort of events or location of some of the bombs where they're at.
Yeah.
In the morgue, I think it was,
disarms
yeah.
him.
They start dismantling them.
Yep.
There's a really there's a shootout here. They crush one of the Marines. Sean Connery's just all BA and cool and just doing his thing. And Nick Cage is doing his thing. He's the chemical warfare guy, and he's like, dude, don't touch it. He's gonna explode. No.
Mhm.
And he's just so full. He goes full Cage in this
Yeah.
scene. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love that's one of my favorite interactions actually because Mason still doesn't entirely understand like what these missiles are because again he's been locked away, so he doesn't
That's
understand
true.
biological weapons per se. I mean, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He didn't realize we had kind of made him, and Nicolas Cage is explaining to him what this stuff does. And one of the guys who he killed, he had like it was like I said, it was a dramatic scene. Like, Jake, I remember we were watching. You're like the. POV of the knife throw, like he throws the knife,
throw!
and the camera like follows the knife right in the guy's throat. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, knife
it's
POV.
Yeah, I really love that scene too because it's like he
Straight
throws the
cut.
knife like
Like it would
this,
spin.
and like it's gonna spin, but then as soon as the
Straight.
camera's following it, the
just
knife
straight.
just goes zoom, straight
yeah,
into
right
his
to the
throat.
ground.
Here it is. I
Yeah,
found it. I found it. Here it
There's
is.
zero spin.
And then there's another guy hiding behind the desk. So then Sean Connery shoots the like swamp cooler
Yeah.
above that falls down and crushes
Falls
the guy.
in- yep.
And so as Nicolas Cage is trying to disarm the missile, the guy's foot's over there twitching because if you don't know, when animals or people die, you usually have like a twitch, your muscle spasm still
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
goes.
yeah,
and so the
yeah.
leg's like moving. And Nicolas Cage is like, "Is that normal? Is there anything you can do about that?" He's like, "What do you want me to do? Kill him again?" It's like- and so that's when he dumps the whole thing like, "This is some really messed up stuff." And he like goes full Nicolas Cage,
Yeah.
and, like over the top drama. Which, to be fair, it kind of works with that scenario though,
does.
because you know he's super stressed out. He's out of his normal environment, and you know he's dealing with this thing that basically, if he messes it up, is going to cause them to die. You know,
Yeah.
a terrible death. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad because this is one thing about Nicolas Cage he did really well in this film. He wasn't like super grounded in the beginning. He was just Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
And then it just goes crazy because this guy was already known to be kind of eccentric and quirky.
Yeah.
Now that he's in a life and death scenario in the field,
It lets him. Yeah.
it lets him be more crazy Nick Cage.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on. Let's see. So they dismantle, I think, a few of the bombs.
Yep.
Can't remember
Yeah,
how many.
There's
All
like 2
but,
left.
Like, 5 or something like that.
Yep. And then we're ready for a wonderful Indiana Jones kart race scene. It's,
yeah.
and we get a little bit of that. We get a little bit of it. Probably less than we probably
Which is
should.
not on the tour, not to
No.
ruin anything. You can't go in the mines of Alcatraz and go
Yeah,
on the
I
cart
feel like
tour.
this would have been a universal ride.
I know exactly.
And just you hear Nick Cage and Sean Connery screaming as you're going down the hallway. But anyway, so they're in there. They're in the mine carts. Sean Connery, they hit the end of it. It breaks. The rail track ends. Nick Cage somehow jumps, and Sean Connery just doesn't, and he
Yep.
holds onto the rope. And then the Marines, the Marines and the Rangers are looking for him. And then they have another shootout in the mines. Really, really fun scene again.
Dr. Cox dies.
Dr. Cox
Yes,
dies.
he dies.
Aw.
He lights him on fire with some kerosene.
Yeah. Oh wow, he is really on fire.
Yeah, he's
Yeah. So we get that. Dr. Cox sadly passes.
Man.
Nick Cage then has another chase with the guy from Clear and Present Danger, and somehow Cage defeats these guys. It's
Yeah.
Goodspeed does something to get rid of him. Oh, he saves Sean Connery's life. That's right. Yeah.
Sean Connery's hanging there from the cart or whatever.
Yeah, there's that. And then in the minecart later, the guy's choking him.
he's choking him out.
Choking
And
him
then, he takes the shot. Goodspeed does. And
And then it's 8 hours to deadline, guys. Deadline until they fire the chemical weapons into the city. And through this whole interaction, you kind of get a back and forth between Goodspeed and Mason. And it's really good. This is where the famous prom queen quote comes in. Mason gets captured. There's a really interesting interaction when he meets Ed Harris's character.
Yeah.
Like, he calls him Sailor. Did you notice this? So he calls him Sailor. And I thought that was weird. I'm like, does he think he was in the Navy or something?
I think it's that he thinks he's a Navy SEAL. And
Yeah,
so
he's assuming he's in the Navy, and then Sean Connery corrects him. He's like, Army, actually.
SAS, the best. You know?
I was British intelligence, you know. During this conversation, Goodspeed tries to go on and dearm some more of the bombs, and it looks like he fails and is he's not captured. He fights off a bunch of guys, and then he's captured.
Yeah.
So then we get to the scene where Sean Connery is making some ropes in a cage, and they only have an hour till the deadline, and Nick Cage is, it's the end of the world.
Monologuing.
Yeah. Pretty much. What do you guys think of that whole charades, the quotes, the quips, them in the cages here, as well as Ed Harris's interaction? What do you guys think about as we go into the end of the film?
The release of the cages with throwing that to the lever, and it pulls the opposite direction to actually open it.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a movie. Yeah, because they're supposed to fall forward, but he's pulling them sideways.
From the
and somehow
side.
the levers keep popping forward. Because that's the whole thing. Yeah, Nicolas Cage monologuing in the prison is like, it's like, you say you got out of prison, I was like, which would be very hopeful right now. If just maybe. He's doing the whole Nicolas Cage over dramatizing, like living it up. He's like, which was really cool, all this stuff you done, but how did you get out of the prison? Your cell. And then all of a sudden his door opens. He's like, trade secrets, my son. Trade secrets.
That's classified.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mason starts walking away, and Goodspeed's like, no, you got to come back, man. We got to save people. He's like, it doesn't matter anymore. And he then disarms Nick Cage. And during this, we get intercuts with Ed Harris and his soldiers debating, are you ready, sir? You going to do it? Are you going to fire the missiles? And he makes the call and says, I can't remember. He picks up the phone and then he puts it down. I think he talks to his other guys, get ready.
Yep.
And then they're going to do it.
Yeah, because
So-
the government called him back, and
Yeah.
at first the soldiers were like, "Oh, they're just playing with. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do this." And then they call like at the last couple minutes, and like, "Oh, we're going to need more time." And he's like, "There is no more time," or whatever. And so then he hangs up on them and goes, "All right, get ready to launch the missiles."
Yep.
And so they get ready to launch the missiles. He sits down at the computer and is like monitoring it, which is the next scene part.
Fire it.
Yeah, so they end up firing it, and
then-
it goes out, and then like at the last second, Ed Harris
changes coordinates.
he uses the
Yeah.
master computer code and sends it off into the water instead of blowing up blowing up the football game.
Yeah.
The Oakland
Take out
Raiders
the
versus
Oakland
I don't remember
Raiders.
who they were playing, like Ravens or something. I don't remember what it was.
And we wouldn't miss
You take out
either. We wouldn't miss either team.
Wouldn't
Come
be
on.
missed.
Yep. And so I think right before that, Nick Cage is held hostage by one of the Rangers. He is then the Rangers then incapacitated by Mason. Surprise. He kills the guy and he's like, I'm back again. And so they're about to fire everything. And the whole sequence happens with what you were saying about them firing that missile.
And that leaves them only one more missile.
Yeah,
that
because
have.
they had
at that
two.
point.
They fired one.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage had disabled the other ones.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah,
And
they have
so
the lighthouse missiles, the only one left.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. So it goes the other way. They're trying to figure out what's going on. A lot of really good tension is just heating up here. And it's really, really entertaining. They pace it really well. And then the big confrontation happens. You have Ed Harris talking to his soldiers, the Marines, the Rangers, all of them. And you have the one Marine with him who's like, are you sure you're going to do this? Like, why did you do that? You're not doing this for anything. He's like, no, this is wrong. And then the Rangers come in and they're like, yo, what's going on? And during this, the government is like going to send the planes to go bomb Alcatraz to get rid of them, kill a bunch of folks, decimate them, rather kill 80 something people and 81 hostages versus
the whole city.
Yeah. And then we have as the F-18s are getting ready, we got Jim Caviezel cameo in here. I was so hyped for such a tiny little
he's like very minutely in this.
Half a second cameo.
Half a second of Jim Caviezel. That's all you need.
That's all you need. He's one of the pilots for those listening in the montage. Of course, nothing gets better. It never gets better than Michael Bay's montages of military folks getting ready. Yeah.
You got the president, doing his whole speech and monologue and all that stuff.
And monologues.
Monologues, yep.
That's that Pearl Harbor's drenched.
Some excellent monologues in this movie.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh man. Speaking of monologues, there's a huge back and forth between the Rangers, Marines, and each other. They're trying to figure out if they want to kill Ed Harris. They're deciding, okay, you need to get out of power here. And then there's a Mexican standoff again. And Nick Cage, Mason, and Goodspeed are looking at him from afar. And then finally somebody opens fire. The honor among soldiers, because they decide to, some of them with Ed Harris, like, no, we shouldn't kill each other. And then some of the Rangers decide to kill him, and then they all shoot at each other, and they're shooting and killing, and Mason goes and saves Ed Harris. And
for a minute,
at least, until he dies.
Because he's wounded, so so he bleeds out.
Nick Cage eventually gets the info out of Ed Harris about where the last missile is in the lighthouse. He goes and tries to dismantle it while Sean Connery is hiding in a bathtub, like Indiana Jones 4. Except instead of a fridge, it's a bathtub. All right, so we're in the end of the movie, guys. We have a whole sequence of Nick Cage fighting a bunch of people and Mason trying to survive and stay alive. Nick Cage fires the missile at one of the Rangers.
With the VX gas out of it.
With the VX out of it, yep. And the guy lands.
He turned him into a rocket man. Rocket man. Because they have a whole thing about there. He's like, oh, do you like Elton John?
I forgot about that.
I don't like no slow jazz shit. he's like, well, that's you. You are the rocket man. And then he hits the button and launches the rocket right to the guy who falls off and gets skewered on a big fence post. I was like,
And so we have a huge back and forth, and for some reason, Nick Cage loses a green ball of one of those chemical things, and he puts it in his pocket. He puts it in his shoe. He puts it in a grate. And somehow it doesn't break at all. I don't get it. And so
unstable.
Quality control.
Yeah. And so as it falls and he's on the lighthouse, he's trying to get maneuvering around it. You have the sniper on the pier and he's shooting at him, and Mason takes him out eventually. But as he's trying to dodge the sniper and hide all the chemical warfare, you got the other Ranger trying to come at him and kill him, and he's trying to get him, hacking out the door. You get all this going on and a really big buildup of just pure Michael Bay action, which is just fantastic. And of course, the F-18s are en route to kill Alcatraz. Yeah. What are we gonna do, guys? What is gonna happen? Besides Mason murking a couple guys, Nick Cage drops the ball, and it's thrown at he puts it in the guy's mouth. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He puts it in the guy's mouth. It explodes.
And then he jams his jaw up and makes it pop in his mouth, and so he starts foaming out of the mouth, and it's right in Nicolas Cage's face. But they're giving him more of the antidote needles.
Yep.
So you have to stab it in. Yeah, you got to stab it into your heart.
Yep.
And earlier at the beginning, Nicolas Cage was like, "Get that away from me!" It's like, so now he actually has to use it because it's like right in his face. So
and he's got a kid on the way. Yeah. He's got to stay alive, man. So he does it. We don't know if he's gonna make it, and really awesome slow-mo Michael Bay sun shots as he's like in and out of consciousness or trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
And then I think hears on the radio somehow that the jets are coming.
Yep.
So then he pulls the fuses out.
Yes.
Flares.
Flares. Snites him up and slowly but surely makes his way to...
Yeah, because he just stabbed himself in the heart.
Yeah, probably walks a good 50 feet
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
just gets on his knees and totally goes full platoon.
Yeah.
Oh, and by
green
the way,
smoke,
Mason is just jogging in the background. He's just like
Gotta
walking
get your
around.
cardio in before you die.
Got it. Cardio's really important. I'm John Mason. Really badass scene. They do shoot a missile at the island, and for some reason, Nick Cage just flies through the air like
Hits
the greatest
behind him,
of
yeah,
ease.
throws him into the ocean.
Yeah,
Yep.
it just goes flying.
His
Nice romantic,
his girlfriend's crying in the background as NORAD or whoever is, chilling out. Oh, Jim Caviezel actually has some lines. He's talking on the radio, guys. What?
Yeah, because he sees the green smoke at the last second, so he's given the order to abort, but he can't pull up fast enough, and he fires off one of his missiles.
Yeah.
So he's on the radio saying, telling them he's
one
still
off.
he couldn't. He fired one before he got the order to abort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, and I realize now after watching this that so many things try to steal from this film, like in so many different ways, especially that ending scene with Nick Cage and stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys seen, what was it? Not Olympus Has Fallen, the other crappy one with Jamie Foxx and Channing Tatum.
Not Black Hawk.
White House Down.
White
White
House
House
Down,
Has
yeah,
Fallen
yeah.
or whatever.
All those different ones.
Is it,
I think it's
I think
White
it's
House.
Fallen.
Down.
oh, if Olympus Has Fallen is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Olympus Has Fallen is the
is
White
what you're-
House one.
I
With,
think it's White House. Down.
White House Down is the one. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. White House Down. But yeah, White House Down has the end scene where like the daughter's like, "No, don't kill me," and the FAT or the Jets are like, "We're screw this," and then they back out, and it's like, what the heck? What is going on? So I feel like Roland Emmerich just emulates everything that Michael Bay does in the worst fashion.
Wow.
As much as I love Day After Tomorrow, he certainly does that. All right, we're at the end of the film. We get Sean Connery talking to Nick Cage, and they're like, "Is Mason alive? This is Womack, bro." And he's like, "Mason died. How did he die? He was obliterated."
vaporized.
What do you think? You dropped a bomb on us.
Vaporized.
Vaporized, sir.
He caught it with his teeth.
It's like,
Damn it.
I love how he's like looks at Nick Cage as like, you're the weapons expert. Like, that's what his glance is saying. That's what his look is saying. He looks at Nick Cage like,
that
can that actually
happen?
happen? And Nick Cage is like, totally, yeah. Of course, yes.
Oh, so we have a wonderful scene of them looking at each other and him handing the note of some buried document, which was the reason why he was captured in the first place.
Yeah.
The location of the microfilm of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And then he runs away and he looks back at him and he's like, and then runs off. Then we get a great green screen. I'm going to guess it's green screen shot of Nick Cage talking to a military dude. And then also Womack after that saying that, "Man, Mason's dead. Tell him the truth. I'll tell the God here, he's dead." Yeah. And they somehow believe him. And then we cut to the end of the film where Nick Cage is in a cowboy hat and jeans and cowboy boots and Ray-Bans and a hat running away from a priest.
He reminds me of his Raising Arizona movie. I think
Oh,
I think you ever saw that. It's like-
Yep.
And they have the microfilm and apparently it has a whole bunch of stuff on it, including who killed JFK.
Age-old secret.
Yeah, the age-old secret. And he's looking at the microfilm and it ends with the line, "Honey, do you want to know who killed John F. Kennedy?" And then they ride off into the sunset.
Boom, boom.
That's The Rock. What do we think of The Rock? And the whole ending and just the whole film. What do you guys think?
It's good. I say definitely much more action packed, like I said, than even Gladiator.
Way
Like
more.
I said, Gladiator is a little kind of more drawn out. This is definitely much more, high point to high point to high point. You keep it going, keep the flow going with it. Like I said, it's got many quotable lines in it, which is super fun and cool. Like I said, again, I'm also a little biased because I love Nicolas Cage, and I love Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. And like we talked about, this is one of the movies where he gets to kind of just let go and be himself, which is kind of really cool. So that's what I enjoy about it.
Yeah.
The cagiest of cages.
The Cage. Well, yeah, I guess so.
One of the cagiest.
One of the Cage. There's so
I-
many
I-
cagiest roles here.
I feel like I feel like Wicker Man is probably cagier than this.
Gotta
even.
be, yeah.
Interesting.
I've only seen bits and pieces of Wicker Man, so I can't judge off the whole movie. But there's certain parts of that where it's like he exceeds the level of cage you find in this movie for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we're bound to watch a few cagier films in the future.
Wow.
at some
Yeah,
point.
we got some cagey things on the horizon
Cagey
here at
things on the
Snarp Fangle.
horizon, that's right. Matt, final thoughts on The Rock. What could you have to say about the film that can't go without saying?
Watch it for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since you made it this far in the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just watch it, guys. Just watch
I mean, even if you've never seen it and you've gotten to the end of the podcast and we've spoiled the ending for you,
Yeah,
it's
I mean-
still an entertaining movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
super fun. And
It's not like the ending, the movie's ruined. It's like every part of it's entertaining.
yeah, Sean Connery doesn't say I am your father. That doesn't do that. But
Yeah.
it's one heck of a movie. So, let's see. Dave, what do you think? Sorry, thanks. I was going with me. What do you think? Last final words on The Rock.
It's a great movie. It's like kind of like the quintessential sort of Michael Bay movie. Very the whole thing's a spectacle in the best way possible.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a thrill ride from start to finish kind of a thing. And it's kind of funny too. It's like, you think like there'd be this like sort of logical progression of movies getting bigger and faster paced and more action packed. But it's like, as old as this movie is, I mean, it's still one heck of a thrill ride.
Yeah.
You cannot call this movie slow or boring in any sense.
Yeah. It reminds me of the pacing and just pure action of Die Hard 3,
Yeah.
which is like probably one of the least talked about Die Hard films besides like the 5th or 6th one that was terrible. But dude, Die Hard 3 with Samuel L. Jackson,
Oh, yeah.
it's so freaking fun. And
Another
it's-
Zeus. Yeah.
yeah. And like the Russian villains and all this stuff. It's like, oh man, it's so
And
entertaining.
Alan Rickman's brother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why. And this time they locked down the whole city. So yeah, but yeah, I think the pacing is what I took away from this film. The most enjoyable part of it, like, not is it just entertaining. Like I already went over the editing, but I feel like the pacing specifically is really, it keeps you captured through the whole thing, and it's just pure entertainment, pure blockbuster. I think that's what I would describe it. Just pure
Yeah.
blockbuster. Oh man, and I think with that we won't ever, unfortunately, get your sequel, Matt. Pierce Brosnan and
No.
Ryan Gosling and who else was in it?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Do all of them. Bring all the Spider-Mans
All
back.
of Well, Nick Cage is one of the Spider-Mans, right?
That is true. He's a
Was
noir,
he?
Spider-Man noir.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have him and Tom Holland in there, and they call it a date.
All
There
right.
you go. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being on the podcast. Thank you for making me watch these two films. I appreciate it.
There'll be more. Don't worry.
There will
Oh
be
no.
more.
We already
Troy.
talked about like 5 films
I know.
in between session, like what I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Like David brought up Matrix earlier. I'm like, oh, why'd you bring up
Gotta watch the
Matrix?
first one.
I need to watch it.
You haven't seen The Matrix?
I haven't.
I wasn't in here.
And we shall find out next time on Snarp Fangle and the saga therein. Thank you for listening, audience. And we bid you adieu before they start getting mad at me of what other films I haven't seen. The Godfather being one of them. Bye, everybody.
Watch Die Hard for Christmas.
Yeah, watch Die Hard for Christmas, and we'll Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.